Hello everyone, welcome to What If Deku was Rias' pawn with Power of Domination Part 2. Chapter 13. Nobody's pav. News of the murder had already spread. The police arrived at the house not long after everyone else left. There was no one else remaining at the house save for the corpse. It was chopped up so badly that it would be very difficult to identify. Then there was the message written in blood. Another religious fanatic had appeared to them. It also seemed that the murderer managed to flee before anything else happened. He was still out there. Meanwhile, Isuku was currently in the clubroom shower naked with Rias as she was healing the injuries on his back. Apparently, even though he was healed, the injuries were a bit serious. He didn't realize it until Akeno pointed out his wounds with a lustful gaze and a perverted smile, which made Izuku jump because he knew it was her side kicking in when she saw the injuries. He also felt pain from his back due to said wounds after Akeno told the group about his cut-up back. Wanting to take care of his injuries, Rias instructed Izuku to follow her into the shower and strip off all of his clothes so she can take care of said injuries. Izuku blushed at her request, trying to back away from, but complied by entering the shower with her, removed all of his clothing, and covered his crotch area so they can get on with Rias' healing procedure. While Izuku was being hugged from behind by a naked Rias, he noticed that her left hand started to glow. Afterwards, he started feeling the wound slowly close up a little. Izuku, so this is what she did to me when I was attacked by that male fallen angel. He then felt Rias let go of him. All set, she said to him. Thank you, Izuku replied as he covered his crotch area and went to put on his boxer shorts so Akeno can apply the bandages without looking down there. Rias looked at Izuku with a sympathetic look. You need to relax, at least until you get your full strength back. Izuku was currently getting bandaged up by Akeno. Izuku didn't notice, but Akeno was still looking at the closed up wounds on his back with a perverted look. While he was getting patched up, Rias continued to speak. The light power that stray exorcist used on you was strong. You're lucky you were able to survive all of his attacks. Izuku, a stray exorcist, what exactly are they? But a ton of them got booed out of the church, and for lack of options, many became servants of fallen angels. Hang on, Izuku said, concerned. Are you saying that Asia and Shiozaki are on the same camp as them? We're not saying anything other than you're a devil, Rias told Izuku as she exited the shower with her towel wrapped around her body. And for whatever reason, they are both the servants of a fallen angel. Those are the facts, Izuku. Izuku, damn, it's Shiozaki Asia. Right now Izuku was seen at a park being excused for missing school today because of his injuries, but now, Izuku, why am I so weak I couldn't even save them? No, I have to, damn it. While sitting down on a bench, he closed his eyes, the reason because before he left he felt that one of the imaginary chains snapped. Once he opened his eyes he was somewhere else, the area being dark and filled with fog. Izuku, what is this place? He heard his voice echoed and started to walk. That was until he saw the chains, multiple of them covering something that was hard to see. Why are you here? Izuku turned around, but he saw no one, but the voice kept asking the same question, and it was getting louder. Izuku, I know why I'm here, I want to remember. The voice suddenly went silent. You're not ready. Izuku, bullshit. Izuku was pissed with his fist clenched that his emotion caused the chains to suddenly rattle. Izuku, you don't get to decide that this is my life. When Izuku ran, he felt a sensation that caused him to get pulled back. He kept struggling while grabbing one of the chains that had made the voice scream at him. No, you can't remember your past, you don't deserve to know. But Izuku pulled the chain with a tug until it broke, causing Izuku to scream with his eyes wide open and looking around to see he was still at the park and breathing heavily. Izuku, what the hell was that? Midoriya-san, it's you. Izuku turned his head left to the source of the voice. He widened his eyes to see two familiar nuns standing before him. Izuku, Asia. Ibarra. Right, we see a flustered Asia and Ibarra with Izuku having a serious face. Izuku, trust me, there's no other way. Asia, really, there isn't. Izuku, that's right, this is how you're supposed to eat a hamburger. He showed them how to eat it with them following Izuku and were surprised this is how they eat when they learn to use utensils. When eating this made Izuku chuckle a bit, but that disappeared. Shiozaki, Asia, I need to know what made the two have decided to go to the park. Izuku said this while the two girls could only look down. Shiozaki, the weather was perfect, so Asia, so we thought it might be nice to get out and enjoy the day. Izuku, Asia, but then the two of us saw you there and our fun day got even better. Izuku, are you sure that's all? Shiozaki saw the look he was given to them and she could only sigh, while Asia simply avoided making eye contact. We ran away from the church, explained Shiozaki. We just couldn't stand Father Fried and Donaseek Sama doing such terrible things to innocent people. Izuku's eyes softened after hearing the girl's reasons. He then gave her a sincere smile. The two of you did the right thing. You don't deserve to be around those kind of people. Well, at least Rainer, Kalwerner and Middlet were there to comfort me before I ran away. When Izuku heard that name his mind went into a frozen state. He looked at them both. Izuku, if they comforted you, then what are they doing with Donaseek? I don't know, answered Asia. But when they knew that I was gonna run away, Kalwerner told me to find you for protection. Izuku Kalawin the same one who attacked me. Maybe she didn't mean to do it, or rather sigh. The trio continued eating their meals, enjoying each other's company. After they finished up, Izuku decided to ask the two sisters something in hopes to get more information about the situation between them, and Donaseek, the fact that name puts him on edge. So, Asia, Shiozaki, was there anything else this Kalawin person told you to before you boy ran away? Or maybe Rainer and Middle told you guys something? Asia had a calculating expression and then looked at Izuku to answer his question. Other than wishing me good luck, that's all I can remember. She then remembered one last thing. Oh, and Rainer told me to tell you that she said she was sorry. Izuku raised an eyebrow at that last sentence. Rainer, telling me she's sorry. Sorry for what? Izuku was puzzled at why she would apologize to him until he saw the way she left on their first date, the tears she poured out for him. Izuku, Rainer, do you still have feelings for me? You know what, Izuku said, making both sisters have a question mark appear on their heads. Since we're all here, why don't we hang out together? They widened their eyes at his request, but then smiled. Sure. That would be nice, Shiozaki said. But that said, the trio left the restaurant and set off to have a good time with each other. Chapter 14. Nobody's Pav. The trio continued on having fun and playing games at an arcade where Izuku won 2 stuffed animals for the girls that made them smile. The trio were now at a vending machine outside to get a drink after spending time in the arcade. Izuku got himself a cola, and Iara and Asia both got a Sprite. After they got their drinks, they made their way to the park and sat down at a nearby bench in front of the water fountain. Surprisingly enough, nobody was here except them, giving the green light to talk about whatever they want without weirding out other people. That is, if they ever do talk about something that involves something humans consider unnatural. While they were drinking, Asia was the first to break the silence. You know what? I can't remember the last time I've had this much fun. This got Izuku to see the sad look from Iara. Really? Izuku asked. Well, I'm glad you did have fun. I had a great time too. Before Izuku could take another sip of his cola, he felt his back sting and let out a grunt in pain. What the heck? Izuku-san, are you hurt? When Izuku turned towards Asia and Iara, they both noticed his grunt. Sorry, my back still hurts from those injuries I had, but don't worry. I see, Asia said after learning the information. Izuku-san, would you like for me to heal them for you? Izuku was taken aback at her kindness and smiled to her. Izuku, yeah, that would be nice. When Izuku faced his back towards her so she can get to healing. She used her sacred gear to get the injuries taken care of, and like that boy who had a scrapped knee, it worked like a charm. He could tell because he felt the pain go away in a matter of seconds. All done, Asia announced to him. Once Izuku got up from the bench and walked around for a while. Wow, it's almost like I never got hurt, thank you very much, Asia. Of course, Asia replied with a smile. It's my pleasure. At that moment, Izuku looked at the girls, he wanted to know just how they got involved. Hey, Asia, Iara, he said to them, getting their attention. Can you tell me just how you two got involved on all of this? They both had downcast looks until they looked back at Izuku. Iara, in order poor is to tell you have to hear the full story. Is that alert with Midoriya-san? Izuku widened his eyes a little at her question. Wanting to know everything so he can get a better understanding, he replied with, sure, I'm all ears. Go ahead and tell me everything. After hearing him say those words, she nodded to him and looked towards Asia, who nodded her head and began telling her story after he took a seat back on the bench. When I was a baby, I was abandoned by my real parents. Izuku widened his eyes in shock after hearing that. They left me in front of a church in a small town in Europe. I was told when they found me, I wouldn't stop crying. The sweet nuns there brought me up. One day, when I was about 8, a sad little puppy, who was hurt real bad, found its way into the church where I lived. I prayed as hard as I could that God would spare him. And when I did, a miracle happened. Because of my power, I was immediately taken to a larger church. Men and women from all over the world would visit when they were injured or sick, and I was told to heal all of them. The idea that I possessed this thing that can actually help other people made me so happy. I finally felt like I had a purpose. But then one day, I came across someone who had fallen and was in bad shape. I was able to heal him, but he wasn't a man. This girl has the power to heal devils. Demon, she's a witch, burn her. They said anyone who had my kind of power was a heretic, and I was so close to being killed if it wasn't for Shiozaki-san, who helped me ever since and also helped me get away in order to escape from the cruel people. Asia looked at Shiozaki, who only smiled. Shiozaki, I was there for you since we were young, Asia, and I know what kind of person you are. I wouldn't let anyone harm you. Izuku couldn't say anything, but still he felt bad for the two girls and their situation. So after you both took off, you decided to join the fallen angels. Yes, replied Asia. But I'll never forget who I am. I say my prayers and try my best to live a good life. Those 3 fallen angels, Rainer, Kalawin, and Middled, they were all so sweet to me and Shiozaki-san, even if they try so hard not to show it. Izuku's eyes softened at the name of the one who was his first ever special person. Really? They never abused you or anything? Of course not, Asia answered with a smile. They were so gentle and welcoming. Her smile then morphed into a frown, and that's when Shiozaki stepped in. But as for Donaseek, he's Jude awful. He's done such horrible evil things to innocent people, and all in the name of God. I had to rely on those other 3 fallen angels along with Shiozaki-san to cheer me up from the madness those 2 cause. Asia, but still this suffering has to be a test of my faith, Asia continued. If I can overcome these trials, someday, I know my hopes and dreams will come true. That's what I believe anyway. What are your dreams? Izuku asked her. To make lots of lifelong friends, Asia answered, holding on to her plushie tightly. To get to know them well and do cool things. To be able to have fun together and care for each other. Izuku eyes widened at that, staring at Asia for a bit until he made up his mind while standing up. Izuku, if that's the case then you've already started up your dreams already. What do you mean? Asia asked him. I don't care what anyone else says, Izuku says truthfully. I'm your friend. Plus you've had Shiozaki with you this entire time and she was always there for you, right? I mean, after what we've all been through, how can we not be? Asia adopted a look of surprise after speaking that sentence. Shiozaki, he's right. This got them to look at Shiozaki, who donned a smile on her face. Shiozaki, even if it was a short time, I feel blessed that I made another friend, and I'm sure you felt the same way, Asia. It's true, Izuku continued. I say we've gotten to know each other pretty well, wouldn't you say, Asia? And I won you both those plushies, so that's a plus. And I sure as heck care about you both. After saying that while having a light blush on his face, Asia's face lighted up in happiness. But her expression turned sad. We can't. I care about you too, but we can't. It's forbidden, and I don't want to cause you any trouble. You're not causing any kind of trouble at all, Izuku assured her. We're friends, alright. And that's that. Really? Asia asked with light red cheeks and tears threatening to leave her eyes. You bet, Izuku answered with an encouraging wink. Alright then, Asia said. The tears in her eyes have finally fallen and rolled down her cheeks. Thank you, Izuku-san. Izuku smiled, seeing their faces, who showing nothing but happiness, got him to suddenly see an image of him holding onto a body while crying. Izuku W, what was that? Why isn't this sweet? Izuku then heard a familiar voice that caused him to turn around to see a woman with black feathered wings and standing onto the water of the water fountain. Izuku ... Yuma. Asia Shiozaki Lady Rainer. Rainer ... I see, so you have turned into a devil. If you value your life I won't harm. All I want is Asia and Ibarra, so please don't get in my way. From the way she said that, Izuku could tell she doesn't want to see him get killed even if he's a devil, but still. Izuku, I can't do that, Yuma. Standing in front of the 2 girls while clenching his left hand, he stared at Rainer. Izuku, I can't let you take them to that prick who killed me. If WHST they say is true, and you did help them, then you have to at least see that whatever plan that crow is doing, it can't happen. Rainer didn't say anything, but brought out her right hand, which caused a red light to form, along with shaping it into a spear. This got Izuku into a stance, seeing as this will lead to a battle. Izuku, I need you 2 to stay behind me, okay? Asia, Izuku-san, wait, if you get hurt then. She saw him giving her a thumbs up. Izuku, don't worry about me. With concentration his left hand glowed, causing his sacred gear to form. Rainer ... So that's your sacred gear ... A twice critical. She shook in anger, but not at Izuku, but at her supposed leader. Rainer, he killed someone who wasn't going to do harm, damn him. Izuku looked at Rainer, who suddenly got rid of her spear. Rainer, it's not worth it, I can't do it ... Head just like before. Izuku, Yuma. Suddenly Izuku felt a pain going through his gut seeing another spear of light, but this one had a different color. Ahahaha, it was a good thing I decided to follow you, Rainer. Donaseek reveals himself to the group, aiming for another time towards Izuku, only for that spear to be blocked courtesy of Rainer. Donaseek, so you show your true colors, of course you'd side with the devils. Rainer, shut your mouth, you knew this wasn't what he wanted. This got Donaseek to glare at her, and suddenly with speed grabbed her by the throat and distancing himself from the trio, with Izuku getting healed from Asia. Donaseek, the fact that a boy like you was about to die is something, but I'll be merciful if you hand me those girls, and if you don't. The screams of Rainer was heard, causing Izuku to get pissed. Boost. He felt it, but it wasn't enough, and this got Donaseek to only laugh. Donaseek, oh please, do you think your little toy can harm me now? You two, you better be little good nuns and come with me if you don't want to see these 2 get killed. Rainer's scream got even louder, causing Izuku to run afresh her, only to avoid an attack that sent him far from the girls. But the sight of seeing them being grabbed by Donaseek caused him to scream. The look in their eyes, along with Rainer's telling him to stop, caused him to hit the ground and seeing them disappear. After 5 seconds have passed, Izuku fell to his knees and looked down at the ground in distraught. Why couldn't I save them? Izuku then noticed something out of the corner of his right eye. He turned right, only to widen his eyes as he noticed 3 things on the ground nearby. He stood up and ran towards the items. When he made it to the items, his eyes grew wider as he now has a good look at the items. It was Asia's and Shiozaki's plushies and the second copy of the photo from the photo booth he gave to Asia. After staring at them for a while, his expression morphed into anger and rage. Damn it, hunching a nearby tree causing to break on impact with him not seeing his sacred gear glowing he didn't care. Why me? I couldn't save them then and couldn't save them now. He felt something dark covering him, his mind wavering. He couldn't tell what was happening. Izuku I.WH. He suddenly stopped shaking his head. After he calmed himself down, he picked up the plushie and photo and headed towards his home to store them in his room so he can give them back to Asia and Shiozaki after he rescues them. But he can't do this alone. I need to tell her, I need to tell Rose about this right now, Izuku declared. After storing the plushies and photo into his room, he went to his next destination. The Occult Research Club. Chapter 15. Nobody's paw. Slap. The sound of someone getting slapped, and this person was Izuku, who told his master what had occurred before coming here, and this was the result, with him having a shocked look on his face. Let me try one more time. If I say don't, you don't. Izuku didn't show it, but after she said that, he was getting pretty pissed off, and even he was surprised at this was setting him off. You have to forget about Asia, and Iara, Rias scolded. You are a member of the Gremory family now. I'm sorry, but you, Izuku replied with anger in his eyes. But I can't do that. I'm not the type of person to abandon a friend just like that. Rias crossed her arms under her bust after hearing his words. While I appreciate your kindness towards those nuns, I still can't allow you to help her. Are you trying to cause trouble for us devils? Izuku clenched his fist and then looked at Rias. Izuku, if that's the case then release me from your peerage. Izuku didn't see it, but once he said that, Rias felt that a piece of her heart was shattered. Rias, I can't do that, Izuku. Izuku, and why not? I'm sure it's simple, you can remove the chess piece and I'll be on my way. What, you can't do anything without your precious pawn? Rias, that's enough. Izuku still glared at her while she did the same. Izuku, I need to save them, Rose. She widened her eyes as Izuku gave her a look she knew all too familiar. Izuku, if I don't, what's the point of me being alive? The silence and staring carried on for 2 minutes until the door suddenly opened, getting everyone's attention. Akeno has entered the room and was walking towards Rias. When she made it to her, she whispered something in her ear that made Rias widen her eyes once again. She nodded afterwards and turned to her other 3 servants while walking towards the exit with her queen. Something has come up, Rias announced to them. Akeno and I have to leave for a moment. She then turned her attention solely to Izuku, getting his attention. Remember, Izuku, even if you're promoted, no matter their rank, a single devil can't take on a fallen angel or any kind of enemy. Before Izuku could respond to her, she and Akeno teleported away via a magic circle. After 3 seconds, Izuku's look has become determined. We'll just have to see about that, now won't we? After asking that question to no one in particular, he made his way towards the exit. You going to save them, aren't you? Izuku turned his head to see Kiba asking him that question. Yeah, I am. Izuku's serious expression was still intact as he answered his question. If you plan on stopping me, just know I won't be backing down. You're gonna get killed, you know. Izuku stopped for a bit at his next question. I've almost given up my life because of this messed up world, but right now, my only concern is to know as long as Asia and Iara lives on, that's all that matters to me. That's very brave of you, Kiba replied. But very stupid too. It's suicide. Izuku glared at Kiba after hearing his opinion. Why don't you, Shing? Izuku widened his eyes to see that Kiba now has a sword by his side. I'm coming with you, Kiba announced to him. What? Izuku was surprised at his sudden announcement. Weren't you listening to Butchu for some hints? Kiba asked. If you get in that church, you're promoted. Eh? But she also said you won't be able to make it there on your own. He finished. So? Izuku said with a raised eyebrow. So we're gonna back you up, answered Kiba. And there's no way in hell we're gonna let you go in there alone, so you might as well save your breath, my friend. Izuku then turned to Kaneko. You too, Taoju-senpai. There's nothing else going on, Kaneko answered. Izuku's face lit up in happiness at the situation, but he sighed and with a serious face, thank you both, alright folks, let's do this. But that said, the 3 devils set off to the church to rescue Asia and Iara from Donaseek. Entrance of the church. Izuku, Kiba and Kaneko were at the entrance of the church where Asia and Iara are being held in. Izuku and Kiba were hiding behind their own trees while Kaneko hid behind the bushes. How do you guys feel that? Izuku asked his 2 comrades, feeling some bad vibes coming from the church. Yup, replied Kiba. There must be a ton of stray priests and exorcists in there. Damn, Izuku commented. I'm honestly glad you guys came with me. Hey, don't sweat it, Kiba replied with a smile. You and I are friends after all, so we need to watch our backs. Kiba's look then turned serious. Besides, fallen angels aren't exactly my favorite things in the world. Truth is, I hate them. Izuku looked at him with a concerned expression. I see. But please, don't hate all of them, alright. Kiba had a questioning look on his face after he asked him that favor. There can be good fallen angels as well, Izuku continued. I should know because he didn't say anything since he was lost in thought while thinking about one certain fallen angel. Kiba was thinking to himself for a moment and then looked to Izuku. No promises, Izuku-kun. Izuku sighed at his answer but decided to leave it at that. He then noticed Kaneko walking towards the entrance of the church. Wait, Taoju-senpai, hold up. No need to use stealth, replied Kaneko. They know we're here. But that said, Izuku and Kiba went to Kaneko's side. Kiba readied his sword as Izuku clenched his fist thinking of a plan, while Kaneko kicked the double doors open, allowing the trio to enter the church. Upon entering, Isuku noticed how dark the church was and some destroyed statues resting next to some of the pews. What the hell kind of church is this? Izuku asked himself. The trio then heard the sound of footsteps to their left and Izuku made a scowl as he recognized who this person was. So, we meet again, shitty devils, Fried said with a sincere smile. Glad you could make it. I bet I'm a sight for sore eyes, huh? No, not really, replied the scowling Izuku who had a low growl in his throat. Here's the thing, Fried continued. I pride myself on the fact that I never have to battle any shitty devil more than once. And yet here you are, just rubbing it in. If there's one thing I won't abide, it's being mocked by shitty devils in the house of God. Izuku could only scowl at his words, not caring about what the psychopath says. Fried pulled out his light sword and pistol out, ready for combat. So, would you say we finish this? His expression then turned to one of a psychopathic killer. The fun of tearing you buckers apart simply makes my mouth water, he then proceeded to lick the top of his pistol perversely. Where's Asia and Ibarra, you freak, Izuku exclaimed, fed up with this stray exorcist's insanity. Oh, you mean those devil-loving whores of sisters? Fried asked. All you have to do is go down to the basement. They're right beneath the altar where we're currently standing on. But if you want to go there, you're gonna have to go through me first. Sacred gear, boost. Kaneko made the first move to attack. She threw a pew at Fried's direction, only for him to slice it in half with his light sword. You're pretty strong for a midget, aren't you? Fried asked her sarcastically. Kaneko's right eye twitched at the word midget. Fried then noticed the speeding of a certain knight that was attempting to attack him, but Fried was able to block all of his attacks while trying to shoot him down with his pistol. Come on, is that all you got? Asked Fried. Show me something interesting. Kiba then clashed swords once more with Fried. I must admit, you're quick. You're not so bad yourself, replied Fried, who aimed his pistol at Kiba's head. That makes me want to kill you even more. Kiba used his knight speed to lean backwards, dodging the bullet Fried shot from his gun and flipped backwards from him. Izuku watched the battle between Kiba and Fried, impressed with his friend's skill in combat. Alright then, if you want to get serious about this, then I can too. After saying this, Kiba's blade of the sword turned black and he readied himself for Fried's next move, smirking. Fried charged forward with his light sword, intending to cut his head off, but Kiba blocked the attack with his sword. After he blocked it, a black magic aura surrounded the blade, making Fried look at the swords with a puzzled look. What the hell is this? The holy eraser, Kiba replied with his smirk still intact. It's a sword of darkness that devours light. Oh please, Fried scoffed. You think I'm afraid of you? Kiba has a sacred gear too. Izuku asked himself in surprise. Izuku-kun, you're on Kiba's signals. Right. Taking a deep breath, he felt the chains that surrounded his very mind. Everything was in slow motion for him, and staring at the eyes of his younger self, he knew what was going to happen. Younger Izuku, I guess I tried, but know this, there's some things even I can't break. Do what you have to do to reclaim that's rightfully yours. Alright, that's it, Fried says in annoyance as he aims his pistol towards Izuku. No more bucking around. Izuku's eyes glowed a faint green while smirking. Izuku, I couldn't agree more, bucker. Chapter 16. Nobody's pav. Meanwhile, not far from the church is where we see Rias and Akeno surrounded by a bunch of stray priests. I hope you two realize that we're not gonna let you go that easily, one of the stray priests said to Rias and Akeno. Rias only smirked to the number of priests who were ready to kill them. Yes, we are quite aware of that. Akeno. Already on it, replied Akeno. She then raised her right hand towards the night sky, causing storm clouds that shot yellow lightning to appear above her. A giant bolt of lightning crashed down to Akeno, but not to zap her. This bolt of lightning made her clothes magically disappear, exposing her naked body. After her clothes disappeared, a Maiko attire has appeared as her new clothing. It consisted of a white haori with red accents, a red hakama, and a pair of zori with white tabi. After obtaining her new attire, she raised both of her hands into the sky, making red circles appear in the sky and surround her, Rias, and the rest of the stray priests. When they saw this, they glared at the devils. Was this your plan the whole time? They screamed at Akeno. Yup, she replied. And I'm gonna take a whole lot of pleasure out of watching you in pain. Hope you're into S&M fufu. This is the end of the line for you, Rias announced with her smirk still intact. HMPH, go ahead and act as confident as you want, Gremory girl, responded one of the priests. The ritual's almost done, and once it's over, not even you will have the power to stand against us and Lord Donaseek. We return back inside the church where we see Izuku running towards Freed. Promotion Rook. Once he said that and catching his fist with Freed pointing his pistol at Izuku. Try me you filthy devil. Firing the bullets from his pistol directing them at Izuku who apvied them as best as he can, Helsing using his scared gear to block the bullets as well. Izuku who got close to Freed with glare on his face with Freed having a look of shock. Well, I'm bucked. And Izuku sent multiple connected blows towards Freed, who felt the amount of damage on his body. But that Freed got pushed back and hitting the pews from Izuku left. Izuku, that's what you get for harming my friends, you bucker. Izuku's eyes glowed even more and walked towards the down Freed to slowly and painfully got up feeling multiple bruises and fresh cuts, along with bloody glared at Izuku. God bucking damn it, I'll be damned if I let a trio of shitty devils get the best of me. Freed painfully jumped back from the group and pulled something out of his coat pocket. You've won the battle, but not the war, buckers. He proceeded to throw a mysterious object on the ground towards his feet. After the object landed, it exploded into a bright light, forcing Izuku and his friends to shield their eyes. After the light went away, Izuku widened his eyes in surprise to see that he was nowhere to be found. Izuku, no damn it. After saying this he punched the ground causing a small crack to form, but when he felt a hand on his shoulder, he looked to see it belonged to Kiba. Kiba saved that anger when we rescue the girls. Izuku could only nod his head while his eyes showed a look that belonged to a predator, no maybe something more. Eyes. Kaneko got Izuku and Kiba's attention as she destroyed a tall wooden counter that carried candles on top, revealing a secret passage. After nodding to each other, they proceeded downstairs. When they made it to the basement, Izuku was not prepared for the sight that his eyes were given to. Come on in devils, welcome to the party, Donaseek announced to the trio with an evil smile. Though I'm afraid you're too late. What Izuku saw was Donaseek, 50 stray exorcists, and something that made him widen his eyes in fear. Asia Bara. Both Asia and Abara were strapped onto a black cross that had white markings on it on a chain. Asia was stripped off of all her clothes, except for her white bra and panties. She slowly looked up as she recognized the voice calling to her. Izuku, you came. Izuku saw the look of relief in her eyes, but he couldn't say anything when he saw that not only were the girls in that state, but the other 3 fallen angel girls were also chained as well. They looked at Izuku, with one of them having a look of regret on her face. Before Izuku could run to them and try to set them free, Kiba grabbed onto his arm to stop him. Hold up, Izuku. Before he could pull him away, an orange spear of light impaled the ground in front of them and went off like an explosive, knocking the two against a wall. I must admit, this really is a touching reunion, Donaseek said mockingly. Unfortunately for you, the ritual's over. The black cross's white markings began to glow green, followed by Asia screaming in pain. Let them go right now, you son of a bitch, Izuku snapped at him. As Asia continued screaming in pain, a black aura with green outlining surrounded her, while the ritual's in progress with Abara stoogling in her chains trying anything to get out, but it was futile, along with the 3 fallen angel girls who struggled to get out. Hey Kiba, Izuku got his fellow devil's attention. Isn't there a way to stop the ritual? I'm sorry, Izuku, Kiba said to him with a sad expression. Izuku didn't need him to finish the sentence. He knew what he was gonna say, and that made him tighten his fist in anger. The flow of the black aura with green outlining has stopped and Asia immediately went quiet. Then, 2 rings that had a glowing green light surrounding them have levitated out of her body. After the rings left her body, Asia's head fell down towards the ground, her chains still holding her up on the cross. The muffled screams that came from Abara along with the tears that flowed from the other girls. Izuku couldn't believe what he saw. He was too late. He couldn't stop the ritual in time to save Asia. Right now, he was feeling so many emotions. Anger, sadness, rage, hatred, and denial. Tears were now threatening to leave his green eyes now. Twilight healing, Donaseek said, catching Izuku's and everyone else's attention. At last, it's finally mine. He grabbed the rings from the air and placed them to his chest. His body began to glow a bright green light, making everyone shield their eyes with their arms. After the light dimmed down, the devils started hearing Donaseek laugh evilly. But this power, I'm unstoppable, I'll be beloved, I'll be the most powerful fallen angel to exist. All those pricks who bucked me over are now going to regret it, and I'll be praised by our leader. You son of a bitch. The scream that came from Izuku where he rushed towards the bastard, only to be blocked by one of the stray priests. You won't stop our plans, devil scum. They went to attack only to get punched by a quick attack to his gut, pushing him back and connected to the other priests. Izuku, I don't have time for you, so buck off. Izuku glared even more that his veins were showing on his face and ran towards the herd of stray priests. Then Izuku heard a sound and looked to see Kaneko punched one of the priests away. Please don't touch me. Kiba also draw his darkness sword. Looks like I will have to go full throttle from the beginning. I hate priests. If there are this many, then I won't hold back to devour your light. He said this with his eyes becoming sharp. The priests were trying to stop Isaac, but Kiba and Kaneko support him by blowing them away. Fiba's sword devours the light of the priest's sword, and Kaneko hit the priests who has lost their weapon with one mighty hit. Thanks, you too. Once Izuku got there he saw Donaseek who simply snapped his fingers. Donaseek, you can take them for all I care, consider it a gift sticker if got what I needed. But then he had to avoid green thorn vines that were coming his way courtesy of Iara, who glared St the fallen. Iara, you'll pay for what you've done. Izuku-san. The sound of Asia's voice made the group to see that Asia was still fighting. Asia, hey, I came to take you back. Yes. Her voice was very small when she replied, and it didn't sound lively. Izuku shall be fine, right? She has to be. You can't die on me, Asia, please don't. Izuku couldn't help but the dark thoughts that covered his mind. It's futile. Donaseek makes a smirk as if he was rejecting the thoughts in Izuku's mind. Possessors whose sacred gear is taken away from their body will die. That girl is going to die. Then give the sacred gear back. Izuku glared at Donaseek who avoided NKT only vines, but spears of light as well, but he simply laughed. There's no way that I will give it back. You got a second chance to live because of me, but it wasn't enough, but it seems it went towards my favor for that to happen, but it's too bad this nun had to die. I would have loved to enjoy her a bit, hahaha. Izuku's mind went blank, and he was hearing the sound of something near him, for that he looked to see his sacred gear having a green glow. Izuku-kun, our formation is at a disadvantage while we are protecting that girl, so go upstairs at once, we'll make the path for you now, hurry. Diba says it while taking down the priests. Izuku tried to calm down, but his anger was still there when Izuku looked at girls. He made up his mind. Izuku, he's right. There are still a great number of priests left, so there will be a limit to fighting this fallen angel here, while protecting Asia and the girls. Izuku glared at the floating Donaseek and then left the place carrying Asia with the girls following him. Kaneko, we will make an escape path for Izuku-kun. Affirmative. The two of them starts to take down the priests who are trying to get in Izuku's way. Thanks to their support, he was able to get to the entrance of the ritual room right away. Fiba, Kaneko, you go ahead, we will handle here. Please go quickly, but just go. Fiba, Kaneko, thank you both. That's what he said to them. With two of them smiled. Izuku's pav. I left the place and went straight to the passage at once. I went up the stairs holding Asia and came out to the sanctuary and laid her down on one of the pews. Just wait a bit, you will be free soon. Asia, you will be able to play with me from now on. Asia makes a small smile at my words. She then takes my hand. I can't feel any strength or warmth from her hand. I was happy that I had a friend even for a short while. Asia is smiling even though she is in pain. If I were to be born again, would you become my friend once more? I saw Iara using her vines and seeing a hint of glow. I knew she was trying to help as much as she can, but Asia's hand still felt cold that I shook. What are you saying? Don't say that. Let's go somewhere to have fun. I will drag you, even though you don't want to. We will go to Karaik Game Center. Let's also go bowling, also other places, also to that place in there. I can't stop my tears from coming out. I'm supposed to be talking to her with a smile, but I can't stop crying. Cause I know she's dying. Iara is doing what she can to heal Asia, but if looks like it's not enough, the other three fallen angel girls were heartbroken at the fact that someone that treated them with care was dying in their eyes. But I want to deny that she's dying. I can't let that happen, I just can't. We are friends always, yeah, that's right, I promise you that you'll live. Please just wait a bit longer, please, you can't die on me. We will have fun together, we'll have fun until we can. If I was born in this country and went to the same school as you, let's go, come to our school. Asia's hand pats my cheek. You even cry for someone like me, now I can. Her hand that is patting my cheeks drops slowly. Thank you. Those were her last words. She passed away smiling. I lost my strength. I just stood there looking at her face. My tears won't stop. Why? Why did this girl have to die? She was a good girl. She was a kind girl who would heal anyone injured. How come no one became her friend? How come I was never by her side? The sounds of crying were heard, but to me all I heard was silence. I couldn't move. Why? Why did she have to die? It's not right. I suddenly stood up and raised my head up. Why, God? Why did she have to die? I shouted towards the ceiling. She was such a kind girl, and yet she had to go through all of this hell. How could you just let her walk around being despised by other people just because she made a simple mistake? She didn't know that man she healed was a devil, and yet you never bothered telling her in some way, shape, or form that he was one. It makes no sense. Damn you, Asia didn't deserve to have such a terrible life. If you actually do care about her, and you do forgive people of their sins, then please, bring her back. All she wanted to do was make a lot of friends. She did with me, and she would have with so many others. Is it because of me? Are you denying her just because I'm a devil? Is that it? In case you haven't noticed my actions, I'm a devil unlike any other. The devil trying to communicate with God. I widened my eyes in anger, with my sacred gear responding to my very emotion, and turned around to see an evil smirking fallen angel. Izuku. Chapter 17. Nobody's pav. Akeno attempted to block the stray priest attacks that was thrown at her. She succeeded in blocking it, but was knocked back by the explosion of the attack, bringing her down on one knee. It doesn't matter what that kid's capable of, one of them said to the devils. He doesn't stand a chance against Lord Donaseek. They continued their attack towards the two girls. Even if he did survive, he'll only be a bucking waste. Ria's expression has turned into a scowl after they started laughing. The powerful pawn, what a bucking joke. After saying that, they threw their attack at Rias, aiming for her heart. However, Rias just stood there with her scowl continuing to grow. Watch out, Akeno warned her, but the spear was already near Rias. At that moment, Ria's entire body was surrounded by her crimson power, and it destroyed any incoming attacks before it could ever pierce her. "He's not a joke," Rias said to Donaseek. Her red hair was now covering her eyes. "No one makes fun of my servants. And if they do, they're gonna pay the price for it." All of the priests looked on in horror at the crimson power surrounding the deed. "Oh, shit, look what you did now," Akeno said to the fallen angel. "Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to taunt her and Izuku-kun like that. Whoopsie on you." Rias started gathering power in her hands in the form of a black aura with red outlining and launched it at all of the state priests. After being engulfed by the attack, the area where they were flashed a bright red. Meanwhile, inside the church where we see Izuku glaring at Donaseek. "Take a look at this wound I have, brat." Donaseek showed the cut on his left arm to him. "Where are Kiba and Kaneko?" Izuku questioned with anger in his tone. But the fallen ignored his question and placed the palm of his right hand above his wound. His hand glowed green and it healed the wound. "It's wonderful, isn't it?" he asked him. "No matter the injury, I heal instantly. A perfect gift for those of us who no longer have the benefit of divine protection, wouldn't you say?" He then spread his arms out with a menacing look on his face. "And now, I'll show all of those bastards how strong I am. With this new power I shall prove to everyone once and for all that I am the supreme fallen angel." "What does that matter?" Donaseek raised an eyebrow at his question. "What does that have to do with Asia?" he continued. "She wasn't a threat, she didn't care about power. Unfortunately, for those who have sacred gears, this is their destiny." "Bullshit," Izuku countered. "She never would have used it, she just wanted to live in peace, damn it." "Out of the question," responded Donaseek. "Why? Humans don't have the ability to survive in their world with their sacred gears. Even if they choose to use the power for good, they are seen as different and would be tortured out of fear." Flashback, Asia's words. "They said anyone who had my power was a heretic, so I had no choice but to run away. Honestly, I'd be happy to have any friends." Flashback end. "Have you ever heard of anything more absurd?" Donaseek asked Izuku. "That's just how humans operate. Has such an unfortunate waste of power." "That wouldn't have happened," argued Izuku. "I was her friend and I could have protected her from all of that shit. I wouldn't have let anyone hurt her ever." "Well, she's dead now," countered Donaseek with a sinister smile. "And here you are talking about protecting her. Do you realize how stupid you sound right now? If you were to protect her, then why is she dead then?" "I'll tell you why, it's because you were weak." Izuku couldn't hear anything, all he heard was his own heartbeat. "Izuku, I've had enough." When he said that, he turned his attention towards Iara and the three fallen angels. "Izuku, I need you four to take Asia out of here, please." The tone that they heard from him caused them to listen and leave. Donaseek not happening. But before he could attack them, he had to avoid a swift kick from Izuku, who glared at him. "Izuku, you're the one responsible for all of this. You were the one who decided to end my life. If I had the chance, give her back." Rias, any sacred gear works on direct correlation to the current feelings of its owner. To put it another way, Izuku, the stronger those feelings are, the more Izuku give back Asia. Brag and boost. When that announcement was heard, Donaseek suddenly felt fear while staring at the eyes of Izuku, who went after him. "Donaseek, it's no use, you fool. No matter how much you triple your power, it still won't be enough." But Izuku didn't listen. With the aura surrounding him, Izuku promotion Rook, along with his devil wings, revealed, with Donaseek sending spears of light towards Izuku, who didn't even bother to move, but letting them get blocked from his defense with his teeth clenched. Donaseek watched in shock, screaming that it wasn't possible for this to happen. But Izuku feeling even more power coursing through his very being. "Izuku, I'll show you what happens when I'm actually serious. When I don't, what happens to me? You hear that, you scum." Explosion. Another announcement from his scared gear and a new change, but Izuku didn't care. Izuku promotion night. But speed that was close to Kiba's. He got close to Donaseek, who screamed on fear, attempting another spear. But Izuku changed its direction and grabbed the scum by the arm, and using his left arm to punch Donaseek in the air. But he wasn't done yet. Feeling a painful sensation that he screamed, the pain coming from his back, and letting out a roar, and went after Donaseek and letting out multiple blows of punches. Izuku clenching his fist even tighter, with his mind being completely blank that he didn't even hear what he himself said. "Izuku, with the power of Drake, get out of my sight." The sound of flesh being hit and the scream of pain, Donaseek was sent out through the window, whereas Izuku was breathing heavily. "Izuku, 1 2 3 4, ha 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 ha, I did it, Asia." He suddenly was close to hitting the ground with his devil wings, which were two pairs retracted to his back once more, but he was grabbed just in time. Chapter 18. Nobody's pav. "Man, you really are something, huh?" When Izuku heard that, he looked to his right to see Kiba giving him a smile. "Kiba, I'm glad you're here." "Oh wow, are you confessing your love to me?" "Don't make it weird, man," Izuku said with a deadpan look on his face, with Kiba laughing. "Anyways, what held you guys up?" I was instructed to stay back, President's orders, sorry. This got Izuku surprised until he heard someone cough, making him look to see that it was Rias leaning herself on a pillar. Rose? When he said that to Rias, she could only stare at him in shock. You remember? Izuku could only nod his head a bit while giving Rias a smile. I knew you were able to defeat that fallen, but I didn't expect you to gain another pair of wings. When she said that, Izuku could only be in a deep thought. Izuku ... 2 pairs of devil wings ... I wonder if… Rias? I was done with my business, so I teleported to the basement here. Once there, I saw Udo and Kaneko fighting a whole bunch of priests. Udo, we wouldn't have made it without her. Izuku, I see, I'm glad that nothing happened to you too. Udo, oh? Were you that worried for me, Izuku-kun? This just made Izuku sigh and moving away from Udo. Izuku, I told you not to make it weird. This just made Rias giggle until she stopped while looking at Izuku's down look. Izuku ... I couldn't say why. Suddenly the doors opened with Kaneko being the one who kicked it and holding something on her shoulder. Kaneko, President, I brought him in. Saying this while throwing Donaseek towards the three devils. It's nice to see you again, fallen Donaseek, Rias said with a hint of disgust in her voice. But Donaseek having a look of fear in his eyes. And also it seems you won't be able to call for any more backup since I blasted them away. The look on his face expressed shock filled with disbelief. Blasted away, Izuku said with Udo explaining that Rias has a nickname, Crimson-Haired Ruin Princess or Princess of Destruction. Izuku, when looking towards Rias, couldn't help but smile. Izuku, it seems you've made a name for yourself, Rose, but I do wonder. His eyes glowing, thinking if she became sloppy with her training. Meanwhile, outside of the church is where we see Akeno Yusunaga Brook while sweeping away the mess while chuckling. Back inside the church, Donaseek glared at Rias with hate in his eyes. How dare you? When you attacked Izuku the second time, I figured there were fallen angels in this town, and I knew you were scheming something. We wouldn't have interfered if you hadn't caused us trouble, but… Rose. Rias turned her attention to Izuku, who showed her his left arm. Aizu, is that ... with a shocked look on her face, and the nod from her servant confirmed it. She then turned her attention to Donaseek. I see, fallen angel Donaseek, this boy, Izukumidoriya's sacred gear is not a mere twice critical. Donaseek, what? Not only him but the three fallen angel girls who came in along with Iara, who still had her work active by keeping Asia alive. Izuku, who saw them, gave them a nod while having a saddened look towards Asia. Known to double its holder's power every 10 seconds, allowing any who possess 8T to surpass even the devil or god in power. Temporarily it is one of the 13 Longinus. Rias. Izuku in thought, the gauntlet of the Red Dragon Emperor, boosted gear. As Rias said that, Donaseek looked shocked with anger in his eyes. Donaseek, a brat like him, has the ominous sacred gear known to bring ruin even to God. Rias, it may be potent, but it takes time to power up, so it's not almighty. Izuku, only if the holder knows how to use it. Rias, you only won, because your enemy underestimated you. Izuku-kun, now it's time to say farewell, fallen. Donaseek clenched his hands tightly, thinking of a way to try to escape until he looked at the three betrayers and then smirked. Donaseek, are you really going to let this happen, brat? If I die, then these three will pay for their crimes. Izuku looked towards them, whose faces were pale from what Donaseek said. Donaseek, you know I'm right. If you truly care for that wretched bitch, then you know keeping me alive will ensure that they survive. Rias glared at him, raising her left arm with a crimson aura. You dare try to threaten my cute servant then? Suddenly Izuku stopped her, which caused Rias to question him if he was going to listen to this fallen. But Izuku didn't say anything. With his eyes covered by his hair, he walked towards Donaseek with a glare that caused him to feel a strong pressure on his body. You've had your chance now, I won't show you any mercy. Boost. The sound of his sacred gear, and raising his right hand towards the fallen. Izuku, oh flames of the damned. A red magic circle was formed underneath Donaseek, with the others in awe and shocked that Izuku made a magic circle. But the one who was max shocked was Rias. Izuku, the time is now. The magic circle glowing brighter even more, with Donaseek trembling and screaming to be forgiven, but Izuku didn't care. Izuku, cover my enemy in thy lively light, burn away. With a snap of his finger, the magic turned from red to a yellowish color, and flames were made. Xiab, the screams of Donaseek to be heard, with Izuku not caring. Izuku saw the feathers of the fallen, all of them smoking and turning to dust. Just then Izuku saw a green glow, and it belonged to Asia's sacred gear. With tears pouring out of his eyes, he grabbed them until he felt someone touch his shoulder. Let's return them to her. Izuku could nod his head and walking towards Iara and the three girls. Iara felt she failed. She couldn't save the one person who was there with her since she was young. But the way Izuku looked at her with smile that held pain, she placed Asia down where Izuku placed the sacred gears back to its rightful owner. Izuku, I couldn't save her. She never deserved to live this mind of life, so why? Izuku almost went into the darkness, that same place, but now it intensified. Rias. Izuku, it's not your fault. You were inexperienced as a devil, so don't blame yourself. Izuku. Izuku stood up seeing the three Fallens and Iara. He turned his attention towards Rias. Izuku, please tell me, is there a way to bring her back? She deserves to at least live a life with people that care for her. Rias then put what appeared to be a chess piece. There might be a way, Izuku-kun. When Izuku saw the chess piece he was confused. The bishop, to be exact, Izuku-kun. The one who said was Akeno, who donned back her school uniform. The bishop's task is to support other devils in the household. Her healing abilities would make her a capable bishop. This caused not only Izuku but the four girls to be shocked. Izuku. Rose, are you saying? With a nod from Rias she told Izuku she will try to resurrect Asia. Rias placed a bishop piece in the middle of the nun's chest so she can start the reincarnation procedure. Issei moved in his friend's position so he can witness how the reincarnation process works. In the name of Rias Gremory, Rias began. I call to Asia Argento. Hear my command. Return thy soul from the shadows of death to the human realm. Rise once more as my devil servant. Rejoice, for you have been given new life. During the reincarnation process, the bishop piece turned red and began to slowly enter Asia's chest. The piece successfully entered Asia's chest and her body glowed a light red. Her body then went back to normal afterwards. So, did it work? Is she gonna live again? Middle was the first to speak after the procedure. She was about to run to Asia to see if she's alive. Wait, Middle stopped in her tracks after hearing Izuku talk to her and turned to him. Let's wait for a while, Izuku continued. As much as I want to jump ahead, I think this is one of those scenarios where we have to wait. Middle made a confused face at his statement. But she then noticed that the sacred gear on Asia's fingers glowed green. After the light went away, everyone noticed that Asia's eyes were slowly opening. Her eyes did open and she slowly got up into a sitting position. Huh? Asia was confused about her current location. Where am I? Is this heaven? Asia turned her head right to see that it was Izuku who called to her. He was smiling because of her presence. I'm so glad you're all Asia. Izuku was interrupted when Middle suddenly brought Asia into a hug. Middle-chan. Asia was a little surprised at Middle's sudden actions. Oh, thank goodness you're alive. The blonde fallen angel was in tears while hugging and speaking to her. Hey, we're still friends, right? And we're gonna stay friends forever? Why yeah, of course we are, replied Asia. Middle continued crying while she kept Asia in her embrace. Palwerner sweat dropped at the scene, but was glad to see that Asia was still alive, and not only her, but both Rainer and Iara were glad as well, with the latter wiping away the tears from her eyes. Izuku just smiled at the scene while scratching the back of his head. It's good to have you back, Asiahhhh. But suddenly Izuku got jumped from behind, and someone embraced him. Once he turned around he couldn't help but stare into their eyes. Izuku Yuma. Rainer just placed her face close to Izuku's chest, not wanting to see the look of disappointment from him, but when he raised her head to face his he just smiled at her. I'm glad that you still care for me, Rainer. Don't you hate me after what I've done, how I treated you and left you there to die? You should be hating me, Izuku, so why? She stopped herself when Izuku hugged her that it made her blush. I never hated you that day, and I sure as hell don't hate you now. Besides, you may be a fallen, but that doesn't mean I should despise all. I only hate those who harm others for their sick enjoyment. Rainer couldn't hold back and hugged him tightly. He later smiled and patted on her head to comfort her. Rias looked at the two with a smile, impressed with how kind her pawn was. Akeno just looked on at the scene with an unreadable look. Kiba watched with a smile, and Kaneko just looked with her usual blank stare. Palwerner and Middle had deadpan looks towards their friend. She totally has the hots for him. Most definitely. The embrace between Izuku and Rainer went on until both Asia and Iara started to approach him. Izuku-san, you're bleeding. Izuku looked at her with a puzzled expression, then looked at the injuries he gotten from his battle. Oh, I forgot about that. Izuku chuckled while scratching the back of his head, blushing in embarrassment. Without hesitation, Asia got to work, placing her hands to heal the wounds, while Iara gave a little help. Izuku noticed the girl's actions and smiled to them. Thanks for that, Asia, Iara. I appreciate it. Of course, replied Asia. Iara simply nodded her head, but her expression was different, which made Izuku worry. Hey, Rainer. Izuku, Asia, Iara and Rainer turned their heads to the direction where they heard Palwerner call to her fellow fallen angel. If you're done reuniting with your crush, can we please get moving? Rainer blushed several shades of red. She then glared at her comrade. Why you shut up? Izuku blushed at Palwerner's words too. She still likes me? Izuku then snapped out of his thoughts when he saw Rainer giving him an embarrassed look. I hope we can see each other again. Eh? Izuku said with a confused expression. Where are you heading? We're heading back to Azazel-sama and report everything that's happened here, Palwerner answered. But that Rainer and Middle went to Palwerner so they can teleport back to Azazel. Before they did teleport, Rainer kissed her hand and blew it to Izuku, which made him blush. He proceeded to chuckle while scratching the back of his head. Izuku turned his head left when he heard Rias call to him. Oh, yes. Rias kept her smile on while speaking to him. From here on, you're both Asia-chan's and Iara-chan's protector. You're the senior devil after all. Izuku just nodded. Izuku-san. Izuku's attention was now on Asia. Yeah, Asia. Asia's cheeks were light red and she was holding her hands together. Am I really back in this world? Izuku could only smile at her and gave her a hug with Iara joining in. Yes, you are, Izuku answered with a smile. And I'm so happy you're back. Izuku then gave her an encouraging wink. Let's go home. Everyone smiled in agreement with him. Hey, it's morning, wake up now, watch where you hand. But the grown Izuku woke up from his sleep with a tired look on his face. When he was going to get up he suddenly tripped on something, and by something it was his devil wings. Izuku, why the hell are they out, damn it. Chapter 19. Nobody's pav. Izuku, donning his school uniform, saying a quick morning to his mother's butsudan and left home. A few minutes went by and we see Izuku heading towards the old building for the occult research club. Once he opened the door he was a bit surprised to see the only person who was there is Rias. Izuku, oh good morning. Rias, oh my, you sure came quite early. Izuku, well you did say something about having a meeting early in the morning, gives me enough time before class starts. He said this while looking at Rias, who was sitting in the sofa, drinking green tea elegantly. How are your wounds? This got Izuku to roll his shoulders with a smile on his. Thanks to Asia and Iara my wounds are completely healed. I see, it seems Asia is doing her job as my bishop quite well, along with the help of Iara as well. Izuku looked at Rias for a bit and sighed a bit and took a seat close to her on the sofa. Is something on your mind, Izuku-kun? Just wondering about the other pawn pieces. Why would you be concerned to that since you're the only pawn for me? This got Izuku confused until he realized what she meant, that it made him just chuckle. You took a gamble, didn't you, Rose? When Rias heard that nickname that came out from Izuku's mouth, she couldn't help but smile. Rias took a sip of her drink before setting it down. The amount of evil pieces used to turn someone into a devil depends on that person's overall potential. A devil's worth is whether or not they can utilize their powers efficiently. When I revived you, I had 1 knight, 1 rook, 1 bishop, and 8 pawns. Since you used up all 8 of my pawn pieces to recruit, I wouldn't have been able to revive you. Izuku looked up to the ceiling with his eyes closed. It's interesting that I'm worth 8 pawn pieces, but I do wonder. Izuku with eyes opened, then stared towards Rias. I hope I won't be a disappointment to you, Rose, even after. Before he could continue say anything he was stopped by a soft pair of hands that held the side of his face, making him stare into the eyes of the girl that he cared for. I don't want to hear those words from you, do you understand? You're not a disappointment to me because of what happened when we were young. Izuku, now listen to me, you're someone who is important to me, not just because of being my pawn but also being the very first person to accept who I am. The two of them stared into each other's eyes, feeling like nothing can disturb them. Rose, that same name that you've called me ever since we were kids, how I truly wanted to hear it for so long. Izuku, I'm so glad to have you by my side, although it seems our two sisters might feel jealous that I'm showing you this much affection. When Izuku heard this he turned his attention towards Iara and Asia, both of them staring at Izuku with a glare along with a pout. Asia, Iara, we're sorry to disturb your little moment, Midoriya-san. It's obvious that Rias Butchu is beautiful, so of course, Izuku-san would be in love with her. No, I can't be thinking of such things, oh lord, please forgive thy sinful heart, how Asia prayed before feeling a throbbing pain in her head. Izuku chuckled as he rubbed the back of his head. How are you adapting? It will take time for me to get used to becoming a devil, and I'm sad that I can't pray to God anymore, but I don't have any regrets. Asia smiled with a pink tint on her cheeks. Glad to hear that, Izuku said to her. Asia will be going the general course with you, Izuku, and the same goes for Iara as well, so you better take care of them. Izuku nodded his head while giving the two sisters a smile on his face, which caused them to both blush at his innocent smile. I hope the two of you have a great time in UA, as long as I'm here I won't let anything happen. Then the door to the club room opened, revealing Akeno pushing something that held a cake with Kiba and Kaneko following behind her. But that came celebrating while eating cake. But Izuku suddenly glared at the window just in time to see flame-like feather disappeared. Izuku ... It's either a quirk or a clan that deals with wind and fire. Izuku's eyes glowed a dim green, but that disappeared when he looked towards the church duo with a smile on his face. Well then, a man's voice said out of nowhere. Wasn't that a sweet ending? Gag me. As it turns out, it was a man with blonde hair and blue eyes using the bird to spy on the group, mostly on Rias. His attire consisted of a burgundy blazer with matching pants and black dress shoes. Surrounding him were 15 beautiful girls, with a couple of them cuddled up against him. Chapter 20. Nobody's pav. The sounds of water was heard, causing Izuku to open his eyes to be surrounded by water with him floating on the surface while his face was staring up in the sky. What's going on? He said this in confusion until he was suddenly pulled into the water, but he didn't struggle, making this felt like a dream to him, a dream that he was new to. While being pulled, he saw what looked to be images inside bubbles of air, making him observe what looked to be him. He was confused seeing his younger self in these images until more and more bubbles of air circled around him and that waxy he started hearing the voices from the images, seeing where he first met Rias, to the point where he started to learn how to chant magic from his very first spell to when he started to get more into magic and getting stronger until it stopped. All the bubbles air suddenly stopped moving, making Izuku wonder until he felt his feet land on solid ground, but as soon as he looked down his widened, seeing what looks to be shadows crying out go him causing him to breath heavily, feeling his heart pounding loud. It seems you're getting close to the truth. Izuku looked up to see his younger self who gave him an emotionless stare. Younger Izuku, but would you accept it or bury it like I have? Izuku, what are you talking about? Just tell me already. The younger Izuku simply walked away causing the older Izuku to run after him. Izuku, wait, just tell me what you need to hear already. But Izuku stopped and saw something that made him pale. In front of him was something that looked like a beast's heart with the color being black with a few lines of green that covered it slightly, and it was beating thag. It made Izuku almost throw up. Izuku, what the hell? Suddenly he heard chains and then being pulled by said chains causing him to struggle. I know you want to know the truth, partner, but it will only do you more harm than good in your state. Izuku looked up and saw what looked to be a red western dragon staring at him who was still being pulled the chains. Izuku, I have a right to know about my past, I have a right to know what happened. Izuku then stared at the giant beast heart once more until he saw what looked to be a handprint on its surface. Boost. Izuku looked to his hand and saw his sacred gear, but he focused more towards the heart and crawling towards it with the chains pulling him even more, but he didn't care. Izuku, I don't care how bucked up I was all those years ago, you won't stop me from doing what needs to be done. I have right to know, so that I won't be a burden to the people who believe in me. And with that Izuku touched a heart seeing a glow from it, along with the chains being shattered from his person causing him to get up and turned his attention to the dragon who simple stared. Izuku, so aren't you gonna say anything to me, Drag? The now named Drake simply laughed and have a look of content. Drake P, I'm glad to know you're still their partner even though it'll be a short time. Izuku looked down for a bit and closes his eyes, seeing a bit of his memories still not taking form, although he smiled seeing information on how to be better for his friends. Izuku, I wouldn't say that I am the Red Dragon Emperor, so I have a role to play by being stronger and showing them my domination. Izuku said this with his eyes revealing to be dragon trying to. It made Drake laugh even more. Drake, then I can't wait to see your power sour. Hi Izuku, until then we'll talk soon. And then he disappeared leaving Izuku alone while staring at the giant heart. Once he removed his hand, the heart disappeared, leaving Izuku alone. Younger Izuku, did you find it? Izuku stared at his younger self and brought out his left hand that held the boosted gear. Izuku, I'll still search until I know I have all the pieces until, then each over me, okay? He said this with a smile, while his younger self, who had an emotionless face, simply shook his hand with a tiny bit of light in his eyes that disappeared quickly. Younger Izuku, until then. Wake up, it's morning and it's time to rise, wake up. The sound of the alarm clock being hit to snooze which also made Izuku groan from his sleep. Once he got out of bed, he stretched a bit to get a few pops to be heard and seeing his wings not out made sigh in relief. But that he went to the bathroom to his business, but unfortunately that wasn't the case when he saw his upperclassman Rias Gremory in the bathroom with clothes on whatsoever. Oh my, Izu, I didn't know you were this straightforward, she said this with smile on her face. But Izuku slammed the door with a sigh on his face until he smiled. Man, damn that girl. But bathroom time not complete yet, he decided to go to pay his respects to his mother, brush his teeth in the guest room, and then cook up breakfast for him and his house-breaking guest. Izuku, who finished breakfast, stared at his left hand and clenching it, knowing what he's going to do after school with a serious look on his face. Grumble, right after he eats. Chapter 21. Nobody's pav. Right now Izuku could only sigh after eating breakfast with Rias with the girl leaving him before he finished getting ready for school. Izuku was in his seat listening to his homeroom teacher while ignoring the whispers from his classmates who were talking about him. The reason they've seen him interact with two of the great sisters of UA High, seen him interact with the only gentleman of the school who is entitled as a white knight, and also they've seen him eating with the one who is entitled as a midget mascot. This placed Izuku in a war with most of the boys in school, who gave him glares because they wanted to be in his place, but to Izuku he didn't care what they think. But Izuku was thinking about what Rias said to him about her being the one to deal with the sleeping arrangements for Iara and Asia. He did wonder when he'll see them again, but he'll have to wait a bit longer when. Oh, are you bucking reject? This made Izuku stop in his tracks and sigh just as when he was so close to go home, he turned around to meet the one and only Douch Bucker Katsuki Bakugo with what looks to be his classmates, with one of them reprimanded the Pomeranian for his colorful words towards Izuku, but the bastard simply ignored him. What do you want? But the way Izuku was glaring at Bakugo, it just made him pissed. What I want? I want your sorry ass out of this school is what I want. You think you deserve to be in UA? So just because I'm in UA you think it's your mission to make my life hell? I'm not even part of the hero course, I'm not even harming your chances in this school, and just because I'm alive you hate me? Izuku then walked towards him with a look of rage that made Katsuki silent, which put his other classmates into wonder. I'm not your punching bag, I'm not your friend and I'm not someone you should mess with anymore Katsuki Bakugo, so leave me the hell alone cause if you don't you'll wish I'd taken your bucking advice. And then he left, but not before waving at the one known as HSDxD who waved back. But Bakugo he felt his hand shake with a shocked look on his face feeling fear for the first time and the one who made him like this was the quirkless freak himself. It was later in the evening where we see Izuku taking a nice walk on the park, enjoying the sound of children playing, having fun, and being so innocent it made him go through his past. Right, it's hard to even remember while only seeing bits of it and seeing the puzzle showing the full picture. He just sighed while checking the time, with that he head home. And he wasn't expecting the situation that was in front of his apartment, seeing stacks of boxes in front of his apartment with both Rias, Asia and Iara standing right next to them. Rather than answering what the boxes were for, in which she said she would do later, Rias only told him to bring them inside. Let me get this straight Izuku said slowly, making sure that he had heard it right the first time, you want Iara and Asia to board in with me? Izuku was looking flabbergasted at Ria's request thinking this was a moke, but seeing her face with a smile on it he knew it wasn't and it looks like both Iara and Asia seems to like the idea of living with him but to him, having two girls here was a mixture of danger for him and it might get worse when Ria starts her shenanigans. Izuku, think about it, Ria said towards the greenet, you're the only one who's shown the drive to help them in need and they seem to enjoy your presence and I know they make you feel at ease, right? I don't deny it but come on, isn't there something else you can do? Well in that case, Rias continued, moving in for argument 2, what would you say if both Asia and Iara used the time while loving with as bridal training? She said this with smile on her face with Izuku, Asia and Iara blushing at the words Rias just said. Bros don't joke about this. Who said I was joking and besides this might help with you interacting more with girls who are around your age besides me and if I remember correctly you still feel a bit anxious when you meet new people don't you? Ria said with a giggle it made Izuku steam up. I know that I'm inexperienced, but please take Dar with me Izuku-san she said this while pooing her head. Same as I, Midoriya and I hope that both me and Asia with care while we're living with you, Iara said this while also bowing towards Izuku, who could only sigh at this, but he did smile. I understand I promise that I'll make sure you two have the best years of your life. Ria smiled as she watched Izuku patted the two girls on the head. Turning to the side, her smile dropped as a weary look appeared in her eyes. Bride, huh? Hey, you okay? Izuku asked after he noticed her current behavior, but didn't get an answer from her as she was still looking at the ceiling with her look still intact. He also noted that this was the second time she started spacing out like this. This time she did it after I talked about marriage. Could she be in a forced marriage she wants no involvement in? Izuku could only guess this as he had no idea what she really was spacing out about and made him rethink about the bird that disappeared during Asia's and Ibara's welcoming party. Don't tell me, no please he thought of this while having a worried look towards Rias, Rose please tell me you're not involved with him. Chapter 22. The very next day, with Izuku do his early workout Asia and Iara left home and made their way to school. And right now the many boys and girls who were among the school were staring both oddly and enviously, with a hint of suspicion at Izuku and the two girls. Once again, Izuku was walking to school with two very attractive beauties, but Izuku did his best to ignore the stares, settling for the company Iara and Asia gave him with Asia shaking nervously. Now Asia whispered nervously, twisting the handle of her school bag with both hands. My first day at a school for he first time, I'm really nervous about this. Iara, did you go to school? Maybe Asia can learn what it was like Izuku asked the Vine quirk user, who patted Asia on the head to at least calm her nerves. I don't remember much, just a single small elementary school, Iara told him. But when I became a holy maiden along with Asia, I was made to stop going to school altogether and given a private tutor. They told me that the holy maiden was far too prestigious to learn menial lessons. Izuku could hear some hint of loneliness in her voice as she said it. Izuku cringed sadly. Both Iara and Asia really did felt lonely after they became holy maidens. Both were adored and admired but never loved for the person they were. The fact that Asia was kicked out of the church just because she healed a devil with Iara who followed her just because she knows how good-hearted Asia is, but it further reinforced the point of how the people there were selfish and ignored the needs of a girl still in her adolescence. But that Izuku gave Asia a smile which she lightly blushed. Don't worry. We'll be in the same class so both me and Iara will be there for you. Thank you, Izuku-san, Asia smiled, a light blush on her face with Iara having a smile on her face as well, feeling a burden close to leaving her chest at seeing the interaction between Asia, who she sees as a sister, and Izuku who saved them both with his willpower and his strength alone. Later on in the day, Izuku, Asia and Iara were in the occult research club room lounging around with Rias, Yudo, Kaneko and Akeno. Even without anything to do, both former holy maidens enjoyed the company. It was warm and welcoming. quite unlike the loneliness Thri felt back in their home village. Izuku was sitting on one of the sofas with a bar right beside him and Asia on his left side, enjoying the bag of sweet pastries in his hand that he was lucky to buy. Both Akeno and Kameko were sitting on the couch across from them, enjoying the pastries also with Kaneko, who had gotten hold of the bag and had already eaten half of it, much to the surprise of Izuku, who sweat dropped at the second year's love of sweets. Yudo was sitting in a chair nearby, reading a book while Rias sat at her desk, fulfilling paperwork. Each of them chatted among themselves, having fun. At least, that was the case until both Asia and Abara explained where they'll be staying. Ara, you're living together now? Akeno asked, a sly smile on her face. So, when can we expect a wedding? Akeno-san, Izuku stuttered, his whole head glowing red from embarrassment. Abara and Asia, though equally as embarrassed, silently liked the idea. Deciding to change the subject, Rias spoke up. You can tease Izuku a bit later, Akeno. This made Izuku narrow his eyes at Rias with a light blush that covered his face, but enough about that, here's why we're really here. Rias got up from her desk and pointed at Izuku and Asia. It's time we got you two familiars. Familiars? Izuku asked. What are they? Asia asked. Familiars are very essential in Devil Society. Think of them as like sidekicks. They can back you up with various tasks and can assist in battle. Rias snapped her fingers. In a puff of smoke, a small cartony bat with dark red fur appears next to her. This is my familiar, Mocha. You actually already met her, Izuku-kun. I did. Right as Izuku said that, Mocha changed into a young woman, wearing a vampire-style outfit. Izuku recognized her right away. You're that girl who gave me the flyer. And it was a lucky thing you kept the flyer, Rias nodded as Mocha turned back into a bat. This is Shiro, he's mine, Kaneko said, showing a small white kitten in her arms. Aw, he's cute. Both Asia and Abara cooed at the total adorableness of Kaneko's familiar, leaning forward to scratch the feline on the ears. The little cat gave a small purr, enjoying the scratches. And this is mine, Izuku looked over at Yudo, showing a small bird on his forearm. So Asia and I are going to get familiars now? Izuku asked, admiring the bird. Well, about that. Rias was interrupted by a sudden knock on the door. Oh, we have visitors. The doors opened. The young devils stood up as the door opened up, and stepping into the room was a group led by a girl the same age as Rias. She was slender and a little shorter than Rias. She had short bob-cut styled hair being held together by a single clip. Her eyes were strangely pinkish and were behind a set of red glasses with oval frames that gave her a cute and professional look. Next to her was a slender woman with split bangs, long black hair that freely fell to her knees, and blue rectangular glasses behind heterochromic eyes, the left being violet and the other one brown. The rest of the teens behind them consisted of 5 girls and 1 boy, some wearing UA uniforms with the girl staring at Izuku with a smile that dawned her face. Sorry to interrupt, the bob cut greeted the group with a small smile. Who are they? Abara whispered. They're mostly UA students currently running for positions in the student council, Yudo answered, having overheard. The one in front is Sona Shitori, and the other one next to her is Shinra Tsubaki. Rias then smiled at Sona. Good to see you again, Sona, Rias greeted. What can I do for you? Nothing, I just wanted to congratulate you on increasing the number of your servants, Sona replied. She then smiled slyly. It took you long enough. Wait, how does she know? Izuku asked. Because her real name is Sona Citri, Yudo told them. And just like Butchu, she's a high-class devil and next in line to lead the house of Citri. Huh? So then, other students at UA are devils just like us? Izuku blinked until his eyes widened when he saw someone who's in his class, but just when he was about to walk towards her, he was stopped by a male voice. It's pretty surprising you haven't told the newbie about us, Butchu, the sole male of the Citri group said. He was somewhat average looking with gray eyes and shaggy light brown hair. He wasn't wearing a school uniform. But if you can't trust him with inside info, then I guess he isn't worth much. It's considered bad form for devils from other households to interfere with one another, Saji, Sona reprimanded him, causing Saji to look at her in surprise. It isn't all that surprising that Rias hasn't told him anything about us yet. And that's the point of this visit anyway. Sona then turned to the others. This is Saji Genshiro, my second and newest pawn, Sona introduced, smiling. This is Midoriya Izuku, my new pawn. And this is my second bishop, Asia Argento, Rias smiled, gesturing at the two of them. Oh, what about her? Sona said while pointing at Abara, who felt like a fish out of water until Izuku touched her shoulder, calming down her nerves. This is Shiozaki Abara, she's went through a lot the same thing as Asia and is living with me, Izuku said this while bowing his head. I'm pleased to meet you, Asia bowed, I hope we'll get along. Sure, I'm all for it, let's be great friends, Saji greeted back with a friendly tone as he shook her hand. Izuku was slightly unsettled by Saji's forwardness. He simply let it slide as he introduced himself next. Pleased to meet you, Saji-san. I'm looking forward to working with another pawn, Izuku smiled, extending his hand. Saji, on the other hand, snorted as he coolly smirked at Izuku. Yeah, sure, he scoffed arrogantly. Dude, you might be nice and all, but you're nowhere on my level. I took up 4 pawns on my own, the braggart continued after a breath for dramatic effect. Maybe someday you'll be able to meet me on equal footing, and we'll see who's the better servant. This placed Izuku in a position that made him think if he wants to just put this dude in his place, well, his eyes had a faint glow. Midoriya took up 8 pieces. It's always better to get your facts straight before you make a complete fool of yourself, Sona quickly spoke. Saji's eyes widened at Izuku's evil piece worth, what? 8 pieces? This guy. How did he manage that? My apologies for my pawn's naivety, Sona told them. He's young and eager, but he still has a lot to learn and needs to appreciate the finer points of civility. Why yeah, Saji frowned apologetically as he rubbed the back of his head, sorry about that. Izuku didn't say anything for a few seconds until he showed Saji smile that held rage. It's okay, Izuku said, with Saji sweating while feeling like he just saw a dragon's image behind the greenet. That reminds me, you're planning on getting your 2 recruits familiars soon, right? Sona asked Rias. Yes, what of it? Rias asked. Then it looks like we've got ourselves a deadlock, Sona frowned worriedly. I planned on getting Saji a familiar for him around the same time. And only one of us can enter the forest of familiars. In that case, Rias smiled, how about a friendly little contest to sort this whole thing out? A contest? Sona repeated, looking surprised. Whoever wins earns the right to find a familiar first, Rias challenged. Does that sound fair? Sona arched an eyebrow, surely you aren't talking about a rating game. Rias chuckled humorously, oh, no. We'd never get permission to do something like that. Sona gave a relaxed smile, you have a point about that. Besides, this isn't the time to call attention to yourself, now is it? Rias suddenly frowned as her eyes flashed slightly. Don't go there. Izuku looked at Rias at the sudden unpleasant look on her face. His look of wonder were eased somewhat as she gave a smile, I know, let's settle this the old-fashioned high school way with sports. Oh? Sounds interesting. I'm game, Sona smiled back. From the way the presidents were looking at each other, sparks seemed to fly between them. Kiba, Izuku whispered, is this going to be okay? Don't worry so much, Yudo answered with a smile. But you and Sona senpai are childhood friends, and they've been competing with each other since they were in diapers. They always challenge each other when they get the chance. Healthy competition. If you say so, Izuku nodded his head, but deep down he knows this healthy competition might be a bit chaotic. Interesting way of seeing it, partner. Glad to hear your voice drag. Seeing that Izuku was busy talking with the knight of Rias Gremory, the girl could only sigh. We'll be able to talk later. Chapter 23. The sun was shining brightly the very next day, a perfect day for a tennis match. Saji and a few of the other girls from the student council were cheering on Sona and Tsubaki as they stood on one end of the cage tennis court, while Izuku, Iara, Asia and Yudo rooted for Rias and Akeno as they stood on the other end. The 4 girls had rackets at the sides and were dressed in white sleeveless shirts with miniskirts that gave a small peep show as the wind blew in the air, not that they seemed to mind as they focused on the match at hand, but they weren't the only ones to see what was going on. Hiya, it's Sona one-sama, a female student screamed. Uiwaya Akeno one-sama, you're as beautiful as always, a male student shouted. Rias one-sama, please go out with me, another male student shouted. Did he just confessed? Tsubaki-sama Kaya, another female student screamed. People started to gather around outside tennis court as 4 most popular girls of UA Academy gathered there to have a tennis match. Izuku was currently covering his ears and grumbling as he keeps on hearing those annoying noises. Asia was standing on his right side, while Kiba, Iara and Kaneko were standing on his left. They all looked at Izuku, seeing him in a bad mood. Here it goes, Sona. Rias was holding a tennis ball and was ready to serve it. Go ahead, Rias. Sona was in her standby mode. The match started as both sides were furiously trying to take down one another. 10 minutes has passed since the game started and both sides' score were 15-15. Haichu win for USSSS. The 3 Occult Research Club devils plus Asia and Iara looked up the fence to see Saji sitting on top of the fence waving a big flag. Izuku, Kiba, Iara and Asia had their sweat dropped on their head, while Kaneko was showing a neutral expression. The match between Rias and Akeno against Sona and Tsubaki was getting more and more intense. Then, Sona decided to change things a bit. Take this Shitori-style spin serve, Sona shouted and hit the ball with a little demonic power released on it. Naive, I can just counter it with Gremory-style. Rias was about to hit the ball until the ball changed its direction during the last second. 15-30, the score was called out by Kusaka, who is the referee. Izuku widened his eyes and turned to look at both Kiba and Kaneko. Did she just use demonic power? Kiba's sweat dropped on his head and gave a forced smile. So you noticed it too, huh? Kaneko's expression remained unchanged. I think they might be getting a little too fired up. Haha, you really are awesome, Kaichao, Saji cheered. No, what about the student who witnessed it? Asia asked worriedly. Suddenly, someone cheered. It's a magic ball. That's amazing. Hey, they said that it was magic ball. Amazing. The two former holy maidens and Izuku were speechless. They can't be that clueless, right? Right. Izuku thought while sweat drop formed the students of UA high naivety. Kiba smiled sheepishly. They thought it was a magic ball. Kaneko closed her eyes, said a painful fact nonchalantly. It's a good thing that they are so oblivious. Rias smirked and declared. As expected from my rival. But, I shall win this game. The heat in the game then increases greatly at the Occult Research Club. In the end, the match didn't end. Kaneko spoke while looking at the torn rackets. They've decided to have a team battle instead. Looks like Butchu and Kaichu are discussing what type of sport they had as their match. Kiba spoke. Rias and Akeno entered the room. Rias then spoke with a confident smile. We've decided dodgeball. The match will be on tomorrow night at gym. At Izuku's apartment. Knock knock knock. Asia, Ibarra, are you two asleep yet? Izuku stood in front of the shared room of Asia and Ibarra, with Asia being the one who opened the door and letting Izuku inside. Izuku-san, is there something you need from us? Ibarra asked while placing down the Bible in her hand, with Asia tilting her head slightly, wanting to know for Izuku's visit. Well, I was made wondering if you two know how to sew. Izuku asked, which made the two girls nod their head. Good. Because I'm asking you to teach me how to sew. Izuku started to tell both the girls about his idea as he started to learn. The evening at the gym, the Occult Research Club members were warming up. Before the match begins. The girls were wearing the UA sports tracksuit with the short sleeves, the same for the boys, except for Kiba, who was wearing a gray and white tracksuit with black accents, Rias, who was wearing a pink and white tracksuit black accents, and Izuku was wearing an opened all-black tracksuit with red accents and wearing a red t-shirt underneath it. Izuku then took out something from his pocket. Everyone, can you please come here for a minute? Izuku called out. As the devils including Ibarra gathered around him, Izuku started to hand them out, one for each person or devil. It was headband with the word Occult Club sewed into it using red string. I was hoping that this might lift everyone's spirit up a bit. Izuku-san made it all overnight, Asia added. Hahaha. Though, it was both Ibarra and Asia who taught me how to sew. Izuku smiled sheepishly while scratching the back of his head while having a light blush on his face. It's my first time sewing, so that's the best I can do. Rias shook her head and said. It was well made, Izu. Thank you very much. It's amazing, Izuku-kun. Kiba complimented Izuku's headband. Well made, Kaneko said and gave a small smile while looking at the headband. Ara, Izuku-kun worked so hard for us. Now we can't lose at all. Izuku quickly rose both his hand up and shook. Then no Rose and Akeno-san did most of the work, even Asia, Shiozaki, Kiba and Kaneko worked harder than me, Izuku said it with a small blush on his face. Everyone laughed. But Rias noticed something when Izuku was shaking his hand. She quickly grabbed onto his hands and took a look at them. Izuku, why your hands? Rias was shocked upon what she saw. Izuku's hands were full of bandages. Well, mostly his fingers. He quickly retracted his hands, hiding behind his back. It's nothing, I just clumsily pricked myself when I was making the headbands. Izuku smiled at them as it was nothing. Rias frowned as she heard that. She then showed a very emotional face and walked towards Izuku. She hugged him in front of everyone. Everyone including Izuku were shocked on Ria's action, but he smiled. Rose? What's with the affection? Everyone's watching, but Izuku didn't get a response from the redhead, making him look down and seeing her eyes staring into his, the two of them, both lost in thought, feeling like the world around them slowed down and only their eye contact would stop time itself until she spoke with an emotional tone. Thank you very much, my cute Izuku, please stay with me forever. Izuku noticed that Ria's voice was a bit wavered, that it made him think on why she had that expression. Rias, could you be? Akeno thought as she saw Ria's reaction. Of course I will stay by your side, Rose. I am your one and only pawn after all, and I'm someone who truly cares for you, Izuku said, with the last part whispering it in Ria's ear that it made her blush, while also happy. Unfortunately, she decided to let Izuku go. Sorry that we're late. Everyone looked towards the source of that voice. It was Sona and her peerage. Rias went back to her usual Butchu mode and smiled. Let's end this once and for all, Sona. The evening at gym, game started. So all I have to do is to either catch the ball or avoid it and not let it hit me. In terms of numbers, we're outnumbered by 2 people. Luckily, one of Citri-sama's peerage became a referee. Izuku started to analyze the situation he's in while dodging the ball that was sent towards him. Currently, Tsubasa was holding the ball. She then aimed at Kaneko and threw the ball really hard. Kaneko bent backwards to dodge the ball, but the ball ripped part of her shirt off. Izuku's eyes widened. Did she just used her rook's power? A whistle was blown. Kaneko out. The referee spoke. Damn it. Izuku muttered. The game then continues. As Rias and Akeno did most of the attacking. Izuku either dodge or pass the ball to either Rias, Akeno or Kaneko because he just can't throw the ball at a girl. He doesn't want to be hexist, but he just can't do it. Both Asia and Iara were running and dodging in most of the game, with Iara blocking the ball's use of her quirk to protect herself and Asia. Iba just threw the ball lightly and missed most of his throws. The simple dodgeball game simply turned into a war zone as both parties were using demonic powers. Will be a last match. The referee called out. Only Rias, Akeno, Sona, Saji and Izuku remained in the final game. Damn that Midoriya. It's because of him that made Kaichu punish me. Saji was glaring at Izuku while holding the ball. Hey playboy, catch the, Saji shouted and threw the ball as hard as he could. Snap. Izuku's vein popped out from his head as he heard Saji called him. The ball was flying hard straight towards Izuku. Izuku-kun, Izuku Kauhai, Izuku-san. Rias, Akeno, Kiba, Kaneko, Iara and Asia shouted as they saw the ball flying towards Izuku at a high speed. But Izuku remained at his position. His green highlight hair shadowed over his eyes. He then lifted up his right hand as the ball was flying close to him. Whoosh! A small gust of wind was felt as Izuku stopped Saji's ball. Saji was shocked as Izuku just caught his ball easily. Izuku placed the ball on his left hand and threw it hard while shouting, "Stop calling me a playboy." Honk. The ball actually hit Saji, but it hit Saji's crotch. Ouch, that's gonna hurt real bad. Izuku sweat dropped on his head after realizing that he had hit Saji's important part. Man down. Medic. Saji was hands his crotch with both his hand and he said that with a high-pitched voice as he falls forward. Saji out. Izulu snapped back into the game. Bros, we have the upper hand now, Izuku shouted. Good job. Rias praised her cute servant. At the Occult Research Club, Tenpei, the current member of Occult Research Club, is celebrating for their victory over the student council. You all did very well in the game. I am proud of you all. Rias praised everyone. But it was Izuku-kun who helped us won the last match. Kiba spoke. No. The one lead us to victory was Rose Butchu. Izuku countered Kiba's compliment. Ara. How modest of you, Izuku-kun. Akeno teased Izuku, smiling at him at the same time. Then, let's not waste any more time. It's time to get you and Asia your familiar. Rias spoke. Wait, what about Iara? Since she isn't a devil, is it possible for her to? But Izuku was stopped when he saw that Iara didn't mind and appreciated Izuku for his well-being towards her. But that he told her to be safe while him and the others get back, which she nodded while getting a hug from Asia. Let us all head to the Forest of Familiar. Chapter 24. Rias conjured one of her magic circles and the club room was filled with gentle white light rather than the usual warm red. All devils present filed through, leaving the human world behind, while also waving goodbye towards Iara. The group of young devils found themselves in a dark forest. The sky was reflective of the underworld's bizarre night cycle, being a bluish purple than the black of the human world. As a result, their surroundings were more purple shadow than anything else, though it didn't matter to them as devils possessed above normal night vision. At some unspoken signal, Rias, Kaneko, and Kiba summoned their familiars. The familiars in question nodded to their summoners before scampering off to who knew where. Where are they going? Asia asked. It's tradition, Rias explained as Mocha simply flew up to the branch above them, where she slept upside down. Well, they spend their time with us in the human world. When we return for any time, it's expected to let them have time off, so to speak. This is their home after all. Kiba's hawk flew off, while Kaneko's white kitten climbed up a tree and disappeared from sight. This place sure is spooky, Izuku commented. It kinda looked like the setting of a horror movie. Ahoy there, an obnoxiously eager voice called from above and behind. The group turned to find a man standing like an over-eager Cub Scout on a mission, in a hero pose up on one of the lower branches of the trees. Welcome to the familiar forest. It's a pleasure to see you again, Master Zatoji, Rias inclined her head. You have my thanks for accommodating us tonight. No thanks are necessary. The familiar master leaped down to land in front of them, thankfully for his sake. He was speaking at a volume that didn't grate any of their ears. Now, how many familiars are we looking for tonight? 2 for my new servants. The man nodded in understanding. I see. Well then, can I interest you in an adolescent dragon? The man blurred and was suddenly next to Izuku, behaving as if the pawn was a potential familiar. Good fighting potential, with a long-inus gear included in the package. Physical condition and performance may be currently pitiful, but with enough time and practice can exceed in all areas. Any takers? Huh? Izuku and the others stared blankly at the familiar master, somewhat alarmed that he was being described so well as unnerved about apparently being offered like an art piece at an auction. To his dismay, Asia raised her hand. I'm not a dragon. What gave you that idea? Izuku muttered. He's right, Rias said, glaring at Asia as she lowered her hand. Izuku is already one of my precious servants, and he may have a dragon-type sacred gear, but he's no dragon. Really? I could have sworn. Zatoji shrugged as he looked Izuku over. Oh well. Now then, what types of familiars are you looking for? A strong type? A fast type? Or a poison type? I feel like I've seen this somewhere before, Izuku said to himself. I'm not sure. What would you recommend? Zataoji smiled at Izuku's question, taking out a catalog from his bag. Flipping through the pages, he stopped and pointed at a drawing of a dragon that took up the whole page. The drawing radiated great ferocity. This is what I would recommend one of the Dragon King's Chaos Karma Dragon, Tiamat. She's a legendary dragon, and also the only female among the Dragon Kings even now. There hasn't been a devil who has caught her yet. That would be obvious, since she's said to be as strong as the 4 Satans. Izuku, upon hearing Tiamat's name, flinched for some reason. The name alone filled him with dread, but he was curious, but wanted to hear more recommendations from the familiar master. Then how about a Hydra? As Zataoji explained all the abilities of the Hydra in great detail, particularly how it could easily kill its master, Izuku could only watch in silence. Am I ever like this? I just want a familiar that's cute is all, Asia said, but Zataoji didn't seem to hear. For about half an hour, which felt like several years, Zataoji led the group through the dimly lit forest, talking about a wide variety of familiars that could easily kill their master. Nothing eventful happened, except when Izuku was about to ask something, but then, he was interrupted when he heard Asia scream in fear. He turned in her direction and widened his eyes to see some kind of green substance raining on her, making her blush at the feeling of it. What the hell? Izuku was unsure what it was, but he widened his eyes further as he found out what it was and squinted them. Oh my. It's sticky. Izuku turned around and widened his eyes again to see that Rias, Akeno, and Kaneko too were having the same substance raining on them. It's green slime, Kiba shouted out as he unsheathed his sword. Before he could cut any of them down, a piece of said slime has landed on his face, blinding him. It's burning away my clothes. How naughty, I'm now all slimy and wet. Izuku's eyes almost popped out of his sockets when he heard Akeno say that. He then started blushing a dark shade of red when he saw the slime do just that to the girls' clothes, making them moan out of embarrassment. He immediately looked away from the girls and immediately requested Kiba for a sword. Even though he was unable to see, he made a sword for Izuku and tossed where he heard his voice, and Izuku grabbed it and getting the slime off by cutting them in pieces from the body of the girls. Come on man, those substances those bastard perverts from school were talking about in their favorite hentai games are real. Give me a bucking break. Izuku's face was now turning the shade of a tomato with a shy expression as he heard Rias and Akeno moan some more. My hands are tied, Rias exclaimed. I won't be able to use my magic like this. Me neither, Akeno added. How are we going to get out of this mess? I'll save you, Izuku shouted as he readied his fist to remove the slime that's tied them up. However, his eyes have widened and turned around away from them, with his blush returning as he saw their naked breasts exposed. But how am I going to do that without looking at your private parts? Meanwhile in the background, Kiba was swinging his sword around, while a piece of the green slime was still covering his eyes. Eating off clothes is the power of this weird slime, Zataoji told Izuku, while he too was blinded by the slime with a nosebleed. They're fun for a while, but in the end, they're a complete and utter waste of time. Well, don't just stand there, Izuku said with his dark blush intact. We need to do something about this. Akeno was now moaning in pleasure as the slime started fondling her breasts. The pain hurt so good, it feels even better when Izuku comes watching. What? Izuku screamed when he heard Akeno say those perverted words. That was not sadism. Izuku then shook his head rapidly as he continued staring at a tree with the sword clutched in his hands. Nope, not happening. I refuse to look in the other direction. Aizu, it's okay, Rias assured him, now having nothing put her panties on. We'll understand you're not looking at us for your pleasure, we'll understand you only want to cut those things down. Before she could continue talking, one of the slime wrapped itself around her crotch area, making her gasp out in either embarrassment or pleasure with a dark blush on her cheeks. I'm sorry, Izuku apologized with a face as dark as Ria's hair. Even if it's for a good cause, it would be indecent for me to. Plop. Izuku stopped his rambling when he felt something land on his crotch. When he looked down, he let out another scream when he saw a piece of green slime on it. And to make matters worse for him, it started melting his pants, exposing his phthalo blue boxer shorts to the girls. Get it off, get it, oof. Izuku tugged at the slime to remove it from his crotch so it wouldn't destroy any more of his pants. Akeno said to herself with a dark blush in the background. The rest of the girls were staring with blushes at Izuku's boxers as he continued to struggle with the slime. He successfully got the slime off of him, but the damage was done and all he could do was tremble, but not in embarrassment, no. But it was anger, and with the sword in his hand, he got to work along with Kiba, who can now see as both of them free the girls from their binding, which caused both Akeno and Rias to use their magic and destroy the slimes. Once the girls acquired new clothing along with Izuku, who gained new pants, and Zataoji recovered, the group continued. Eventually, they happened upon a large grass-filled clearing. There, resting on a fallen tree, was a tiny reptilian dragon the size of a kitten. Blue scales, white spikes along its spine, and a triangular head. It's so cute, Asia beamed. That is a sprite dragon, said Zataoji. Sprite dragon? Izuku repeated. Yeah, a sprite dragon. A baby if I had to guess. Just like its name, it's a dragon that uses blue lightning. If you are going to catch it, now is the time. You would not be able to catch it once it matures. It won't be as strong as a dragon king, but it's placed in the top tier normal class for dragons. Well, Izuku-kun, what do you think? Rias asked. Izuku lowers his head in thought. The fact it was a baby meant that it won't kill him right away. Then he noticed that Asia was eyeing the little drake. Smiling, Izuku said, I think we should let Asia catch it. Asia looked generally surprised, then smiled. She looked to Rias with pleading eyes. Rias smiled. Very well, she nodded. Slowly, Asia approached the little drake. The sprite dragon woke upon hearing Iara's approach, but it didn't flee. Rather, it looked at her with curiosity. Hello, she said hesitantly. Can you understand me? The little drake nodded before jumping onto her shoulder. Does this mean you want to be my familiar? It answered by rubbing its head against hers. Now that ain't something you see every day, Zataji quipped. In the name of Asia Argento, I order you shall become my familiar and respond to my contract. At the entrance of the forest, Asia had opened a green magic circle, the sprite dragon sitting in the middle, the contract ceremony between Iara and the familiar taking place. Of course, since Asia was a beginner, Rias was supporting her. But it seems like the ceremony is progressing very well. Normally the sprite dragon is a dragon who won't pledge to a devil, but it seems that girl has a very pure heart. Something like this has never happened before, but it seems like the contract ceremony will finish safely. Zataji said. Well, she was a holy maiden before becoming a devil, so that might have something to do with it, Yudo noted. The light from the magic circle starts to gradually lose its light. Because the contract was finished, the baby dragon flew to Iara and started to play with her. Haha that tickles, Raikou. Izuku blinked. Raikou. Asia then blushed. Yes. He is a dragon who uses Reikm, and I also use part of your name, Izuku-san. Is that okay? It's alright, Izuku replied, walking up to them. It's nice to meet you, Raikou. Raiku's body started to glow blue. Buzz shock. Ga. Izuku, who got hit by an electric attack, screamed but held his ground while clenching his fist and grinding his teeth, with his eyes glowing green ferociously. But as soon as the attack stopped, Izuku jolted in pain, while having a bit of electricity traveling around his hair, but he stared at Raikou with a look that was described as a beast, with the little dragon bot backing down. You're something else, huh? But please do me a favor, saying this while patting Asia's head with a smile on his face, keep Asia safe for me. That's all Izuku said to the sprite dragon, who only nodded in confirmation while nuzzling in Asia's hands. I forgot to mention, but male sprite dragons hate males from other races, Zataji said, also burnt black. Behind him, Yudo was also charred black, doing his best to put on a refreshing smile. What a naughty boy, Fufurias giggled. I'm afraid that time has run out for today, Zataji shook off the black. Apologies for not being able to acquire you a familiar as well. It's okay, Izuku muttered, getting up. I can wait. Are you sure? Rias asked. I kinda like the idea of you having a dragon king as a familiar. The thought crossed his mind, but for some reason he can feel like it'll go bad for him. I'm very sure, Rose. That's all Izuku said while feeling he was being watched from afar and he wanted to leave this place right now. Chapter 25. Wedding bells. Why are there wedding bells? Izuku wondered while standing on the steps of a church for some reason, with bells chiming in the air and a large noisy crowd standing before him, and he was wearing a white tuxedo as well. Izuku, he looked through the crowd and his eyes widened when he found his mother dressed in a red gown, his father wearing light blue dress clothes standing behind her. We're so proud of you, please be sure to make us lots of grandkids, Inko beamed proudly. Mom? What? How? Izuku blinked dumbly. Deku, you cheap bastard. Izuku nearly jumped at the all too familiar yelling. Looking through the crowd, he saw Bakugo with an absolutely livid look on his face being restrained by his two friends. How the hell did you manage to get married before me? I'm married. Izuku shouted. I'm getting married. How was he getting married now? He was only 15, sure the age of consent is 13, but that was something else altogether, and who was he even getting married to? That question was answered when he felt someone wrapping their arm around his. He looked up at a very impressive chest, and the blood rushed back to his face with a vengeance as he jerked his head up. There at his side was Rias Gremory, dressed in a pure white wedding dress. The skirt was just short enough to show off her shapely legs covered in white pantyhose and matching heels. A bouquet was holding in her gloved hands, a veil was lifted over her head, and her beauty was enhanced with makeup. There's no need to look so restless, Izu, she smiled lovingly at him, just bask in the moment. No way, you gotta be kidding me, Izuku screamed inwardly, my bride is Rose. Both Izuku and Rias walked down from the steps of the church and past the crowd, side by side. All in the while, many cheers and cries sounded out from the crowd. There were a lot of voices crying out, but he could make out what they were saying. He could hear girls cry out, Rias-sama, you're so beautiful, you're gorgeous, and you're too beautiful, why him? Izuku tried to play it cool, but he was sweating, very uncomfortable with being so close to a beautiful girl he was married to apparently. "We've arrived." Izuku was brought out of his thoughts at the sound of Ria's voice. To his surprise and embarrassment, he found that they were standing before a huge love hotel. He completely forgot that one of the main things couples did during a honeymoon was having sex with one another all night long. "Shall we go then?" Rias asked, smiling at him. Izuku nodded slowly. The couple checked themselves inside and went up to one of the rooms. It was a typical design. The colors were meant to stimulate passion. Red and pink were pretty common. The rug was soft just in case the guests wanted to make love on the floor. Izuku sat there on the bed while Rias was in the bathroom preparing herself, his thumbs twitching together like crazy. The bed was round and there was a set of controls set on a control panel that was built into the nightstand. He looked at a nearby round table and saw some bottles of wine, lit scented candles and massage oils. Izuku felt nervous because this was the first time he's ever been this close to a girl, and it was the one who made him feel something. He swallowed heavily, his skittish nature rising and returning back to him that he cursed mentally. "Oh, Izuku." Izuku quickly turned his head at the sound of Ria's voice. She stepped out of the bathroom with a towel wrapped around her shapely body. The towel didn't stay for very long as she allowed it to drop to the floor and pool around her feet. The elegant young lady was in a very smoking lingerie, white floral lace bustier with a lace up front, boning, garter straps, underwire cups, adjustable shoulder straps, matching fingerless gloves and G-string with matching sheer stockings. It was very welcoming, like uncharted territory. "Oh, you look wow," was all Izuku was able to say. Rias giggled as she sauntered over to him. She pushed him down on the bed and climbed on top, straddling his waist. "I'm not really used to this yet," Izuku stuttered, his voice beginning to crack. "There's no need to apologize, my dear Izuku," Rias smiled, her eyes half-lidded as she cupped both her hands to his face. Izuku could feel his heart throbbing. He felt that it was throbbing so loud that it was practically thundering in his eardrums. "It's alright, I'll eat." Rias leaned down and puckered her lips, wanting to seal the moment with a kiss. Izuku, who felt the heat taking over, closed his eyes. His arms reacting on their own and wrapped around her waist, bringing her in closer, the lips just inches. "If I didn't know better, I say you like getting aroused by assertive women, huh Brad?" Izuku's eyes shot open as he quickly sat up. Rias had suddenly vanished and with her the bedroom. Instead, he found himself sitting in the middle of a black void. What's going on? "Wait, oh come on, are you telling me I was dreaming? Well, the fact that saw both my parents, yeah, I was dreaming. This ain't no dream, partner. Not anymore, at least." The voice was right behind him. "There are a few things we need to discuss." Izuku turned around and saw Drake in all his glory. "Drake, it's good to see you. But what exactly you wanted to discuss while putting that sort of dream in my head?" Izuku asked the dragon in front of him. "Don't act like you didn't enjoy it, partner. I know what you like, including that redhead you called a master, but you're right and also wrong. I wasn't the one who put that image in your head, but it could mean something else." The red dragon spoke to him. "Alright. Lay it on me." "After observing the previous day where you were with Rias, talking to you about allowing Asia and Iara to live in your home, I assumed that this is some kind of foreshadowing that involves a wedding between her and some scumbag." Izuku then widened his eyes until it turned serious when he started remembering that day. "Well, I do remember hearing her say something when I asked if Asia, Iara and I aren't really going to wed. Yes. Her words were, 'If you're lucky.'" Izuku stared at Drake when he heard this. "It seems you're able to hear and see things now that I have a bit of power, huh Drake?" Izuku said to the dragon, who bellowed. "And I find it confusing when you suddenly decided to seal away your powers, partner, but I guess your reason was justified that day." Izuku just sighed. "My memories of that day are still like puzzles, I can't find the pieces, and the image isn't shown completely, but it's nice to know you're seeing my life through my eyes, Drake. Though, most of the time I just sleep due to how boring some parts of your day are." Izuku shot an arrow-eyed deadpan at Drake. "And you killed the mood." "What? I can't help it. You weren't doing any fighting during those times I was asleep, if that makes you feel better." Izuku lets out another sigh. He then thought about Drake's assumption about his wedding dream. "Well, this is quite the conundrum, eh?" "Yes, it is. But right now, you are about to awaken from your slumber. Until we speak to each other again, partner." Izuku lets out one last sigh after Drake told him about his awakening. "I can't help but feel that our exits from our conversation will end so abruptly very frequently." But that Izuku disappeared with Drake being the only one there while resting his claws underneath his face while staring at the nothingness. "I know you're watching, just make sure you don't screw his life even more." That's all Drake said while taking a nap. Chapter 26. By the time Izuku woke up, he couldn't help but sigh again and got out of bed. And the day started off with Izuku, Asia and Iara, all three of them heading to school and inside their classroom, which was the general course with the trip interacting with some of their classmates while only Asia and Iara, with Izuku getting glares from the males, which made him wonder why do they hate him so much. Wow, maybe in a few days more all the boys in this school will start to grab pitchforks and torches and named it Midoriya Day for you, someone said this to Izuku at his side, which made him turn and saw the smirk on this person's face. And now you're making me feel anxious that the guys in this school might do something to me, thanks for that Shinso, Izuku said towards his classmates who goes by Hiyori Shinso, who's also a reincarnated devil like him in Asia, belonging to Sona Citri, the student council president of UA High. No problem, Hiyori said, knowing Izuku meant it as sarcasm with a smile on her face that irked Izuku a bit. After their class was over it was time for lunch, and this was where Izuku felt the pressure of the many males that were glaring at his direction, because he was sitting with Asia, Iara and Izuku that screamed annoyance glared back with hate in his eyes that the boys in the cafeteria felt his bloodlust and it caused them to turn around, sweating from the stare that resembles one of a dragon, ready to hunt down and tear away the flesh its prey. It was later on was where we see the members of the Occult Research Club finishing up their daily duties, but three of their members weren't here because of one of them decided to do something that was unusual. It was before the end of the school day was when Izukumidoriya got a call from a friend he met during the entrance exam, and that friend of his was in distress that caused him to leave school and head towards a location which was known as USJ, and it was infested with villains who thought it was a good idea to HWRM the students and kill the symbol of peace. It was then at the last second when a teacher was close to getting collect the beast that was called Inomu was then pinched by Izuku, who hid his identity and faced off against Inomu while winning the bout with ease, which didn't sit well with the villain with hands, but then the heroes came just in time to deal with the leftover villains, but the two main villains escaped. Izuku, whose identity was hidden, was surrounded by the heroes who wanted to know who he was, with Izuku swing all might walking towards that he suddenly blitzed towards him and punched him where his injury was, causing the hero to take a knee and hold his side. This resulted with the heroes to attack only for Izuku to suddenly be teleported in the occult research building, with the looks that were given to him with him trying to stay he was okay, but the look that Asia, Iara and Rose was given him made him quiet. Rias could only sigh at Izuku's action and, yet from what he told them it seems he's getting stronger, which made her happy, and seeing him smiling even more brought nothing but joy. Her Izuku, her little bunny, the boy that she cherished. But then she was currently thinking about her current situation that she never told to her new servants. She was stressed. She wanted to find an escape out of it. But how? Rias then widened her eyes a little as her mind travels to a certain black-green highlighted hair boy, his courage, his bravery, his compassion. Having made up her mind, she stood up from her seat and narrowed her eyes toward her desk. I guess that's my only option. Right now the trio that consists of Izuku, Iara and Asia were currently walking towards their home while holding a conversation with each other. Have you been glancing at her distressed expressions? Izuku asked the sister duo with a hint of worry in his voice. Yeah, we did, replied Asia, having the same look of worry as Izuku did. And when I asked her if she was alright, she simply told me that she was fine. He narrows his eyes. But if you want my opinion, I don't buy it. I feel like there's more to her behavior than meets the eye. Izuku then shifted his eyes toward the ground as he continued his walk. And again, Drake may be right about what he told back in my dream world. Izuku felt a tug on the left side of his shirt and turned to see Asia and Iara, both who were now smiling at him. But hey, that doesn't mean we should give up, Asia said happily. I'm sure there's a way to make her feel better, right? Izuku lets out another sigh in frustration and looks up in the afternoon sky. That, I don't know. He then looked back forward as the three were now getting near their house. All we can do is hope. As the three made it to the front door of the house, Izuku told Asia and Iara to go on in without him because he needed a moment to himself outside. The girls complied with a nod and went on in. After they shut the door behind him, Izuku went towards a nearby shade in the woods and stood there. He was then thinking to himself aloud. Man, what a day, can't believe I fought a creature that isn't part of supernatural, and yet it gave me a hard time. At least Uraraka and her friends are okay, and I did have a bit of satisfaction of hitting that so-called symbol of peace in the groin. Haha man. Putting that note aside, he sets his gaze back into the sky as he thinks about his concerns for Rias. Rose, just what the hell's going on? I understand if it's personal, but still, it's getting out of hand. Izuku's eyes as he sticks his hands into his pockets. Whatever it is, just know that we'll help you out, no matter what it takes. Iara, is something troubling you, my favorite cowhide? Izuku's eyes widened and his cheeks turned dark red when a pair of slender arms wrapped around his neck and felt something soft press against his back. Izuku didn't need to know who it was, as her voice gave it away. Akeno-senpai, he exclaimed with flushed cheeks as his eyes met hers. Why are you here? Akeno giggled cutely at his bashful stuttering while staring into his eyes with a sultry gaze and smile. Ufufufu. I couldn't help but notice that you were down in the dumps, so I decided to come see you and cheer you up. Akeno started to gently stroke Izuku's cheek with her left hand while stroking his chest with her right, causing the latter's cheeks to turn a darker shade of red. Now then, Izuku-kun, she continued. Tell your senpai what's wrong and I'll do everything in my power to make it all better. Izuku then realized something in his mind. Akeno was Ria's queen, her right-hand man. Maybe if I ask her what's going on with Rose, then maybe I can get a bright idea. Sorry Drake, well I understand why you'd think it has something to do with marriage, we can't be too certain on it just yet. I understand, partner. Ask your question to Akeno and enjoy her cuddling while you do so. Izuku's eyes widened in both surprise and embarrassment. The surprise part was when Drake responded to him, while the embarrassed part was when he mentioned that his raven-haired senpai was cuddling him like a teddy bear. Drake. When have you woken up, knowing that you sleep during boring parts of my life? I simply got interested when that girl started hugging you from behind. Izuku sweat dropped at his reason. Before he could say anything else to the dragon, the dark red in Izuku's face returned as he felt Akeno's embrace tighten and her breasts press harder against his back. Come on, Izuku-kun, Akeno said to him with her cute stare and smile. You can tell me anything. Izuku couldn't help but soften his eyes at her gaze. Damn, she's so adorable when she looks at me like that. No, Izuku focus. Izuku shook his head from his thoughts and sets his eyes towards Akeno. Well, Robuchu has been acting like something bad has happened or will be happening to her soon, Izuku explained it shyly due to Akeno still stroking his cheek and chest and that she had a cute face while looking at him with her sultry smile, which was keeping his cheeks dark red. And every time I ask her if she's alright, she always says that she's fine or was lost in thought. I don't know why, but I don't buy it. Izuku blinked in surprise when he saw Akeno frown. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, she replied. Well I can't say much, I can say this. She's going through something that will affect all of us. Izuku widened his eyes at this. Affect us how? I can't say. All I know is that it won't be pretty. Izuku blinked twice at her statement. He then shifted his eyes towards the ground with a sad look. I didn't think it would be this bad. He then looked back up to Akeno. Is there a way we can help her? Akeno looked up towards the sky while still keeping her hold on Izuku. Hard to say. Izuku now has a face of defeat. Damn. I was hoping it would be more simple. But that doesn't mean you should be all depressed. Izuku's blush returned as Akeno tightened her hug and pressed her breasts against him harder. Akeno-senpai. SHHHHH. Don't be frightened, my favorite cowhide, Akeno said cutely as she stroked Izuku's head in gentle pets while resting her head on his right shoulder. You just relax in my embrace and I'll make all of your worries go away. Izuku's face was turning redder and redder as Akeno continued to cuddle him. He then started letting out soft but quiet moans as he could feel her breasts push against his back repeatedly by every second. Your moans are so adorable. It makes me like that side of you more than your tough boy side. Izuku lets out a yelp at the perverted tone she had in her voice. His legs then started to twitch as he felt something in between them make his pants feel tight. No, not now, don't start little junior, Izuku thought in his mind as his male region was getting blood and starting to get pumping, and it got worse as Akeno's eyes landed towards Izuku's crotch and widened her smile while giggling when she saw the bulge in his pants. Naughty boy. You got turned on by little old me? Well you. Izuku was stuttering like mad as he was now embarrassed by her discovery. Before he could try to speak a clear sentence, he lets out another yelp as Akeno presses her boobs on his back harder. Or maybe it's because of these. Akeno wrapped her arms around Izuku's neck and started to rub her breasts up and down hard against his back. As she was doing that, she began nuzzling her left cheek on Izuku's right cheek while releasing cute giggles from her mouth. Izuku's entire face was nearing the color of Ria's hair. The sensation of Akeno's boobs rubbing his back, the nuzzling of their cheeks, and the hot breath she was releasing in small breaths at every downward thrust of her bosom was making him feel hot inside. He wasn't sure if he should enjoy this or not, but he did admit in his mind that her cuddling felt good. And no, I won't have the mindset of perverts, but for some reason, I'm enjoying this, but why? Why am I feeling this way? Izuku suddenly lets out a gasp in surprise when Akeno started licking his cheek. He tried his very best to suppress his moans due to the wet feeling on his cheek every time her tongue moves up and down against it. Holy crap, Izuku exclaimed in his mind. I had no idea Akeno-senpai could be this assertive. He widens his eyes as he felt something bump into his right leg. What the hell is she up to now? Before he can think of an answer, he began to feel Akeno's legs go in between his right leg while she rubbed her breasts on his back and licked his cheek. He then started feeling hotter than before when he felt something grind on his leg. After a few seconds pass, Izuku's eyes almost popped out of his sockets and steam started shooting out of his ears after he figured out what Akeno was doing to him. She's humping me, she's humping me. The mind of Izuku said as what she was doing while having both of his hands on his red cheeks. While letting out small cute quiet moans of pleasure, Akeno was now slowly and gently humping Izuku's leg while looking at the flushed boy with a sultry gaze and some red cheeks of her own. She lets another smile form on her lips when she saw Izuku's reaction. If does it feel good? Izuku Akeno asked him with a cute tone in her voice. You can tell me. I won't judge you. Well, I will admit, senpai, it does feel kinda nice, and mmph. Izuku sealed his lips as tight as he could. Did I seriously say that out loud? What the hell is wrong with me today? Akeno giggled at his response as she blushes a dark shade of red. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's the least I could do to ease your mind. Izuku started stuttering shyly, trying to come up with something to respond with, but he was unable to do so due to how embarrassed and ashamed he was with himself and that the feeling he got from Akeno continuing to grind her crotch on his leg was making him feel really hot. It's okay, Akeno said, knowing how he's feeling right now. Everyone can be perverted in their own way. It's only a natural reaction to enjoy something like this. Izuku widened his eyes in surprise while letting out another gasp as Akeno presses her lips onto his cheek, planting a kiss on it. After removing her lips from the cheek, she started to slowly move her hands down his body. She started from his cheeks to his shoulders, giving them a quick gentle massage before her hands continued downward to his chest. Danger, danger, she's reaching for the naughty bits. The chibi Izuku was in full panic, fearing for the real Izuku's consciousness. Come on, real me, keep it together. Confirming the chibi Izuku's alarm, after Akeno stroked the real one's chest gently with both of her hands, they started slithering their way towards the bulge spot in his pants at a really slow pace. By the time her hands were 3 inches from the bulge, she extended her index and middle fingers from each hand and went to their target. Stop. Izuku quickly grabbed onto her hands with his own. He was too flustered to notice that his grip on her hands were pretty tight, causing Akeno's cheeks to tinge light red. That's enough, Akeno-senpai, Izuku said with his cheeks the shade of Ria's hair. Please, let's stop here before someone walks in on us and gets the wrong idea. Akeno lets out a cute giggle at his stuttering as she lets go of him from her hug. Your shyness is as cute as always, Izuku. Akeno walked around the embarrassed red-faced Izuku to get in front of him. She then walked closer until she was about 2 to 3 inches from his face and sent him a sultry smile. Alright. That will do for now, she says to Izuku, making him sigh a breath of relief. But remember, my favorite cowhide, Akeno continued, making Izuku jump out of his brief relief and set his nervous eyes on the black-haired beauty. Whenever you're feeling down in the dumps or if you're in need of stimulation, Akeno takes one step closer to Izuku. I'll be there to help however I can. Rope. Buaya. Izuku jumped 3 feet in the air, letting out a scream while holding onto his butt after Akeno gave it a tight squeeze. Akeno tittered with a hand over her mouth at the sight. He's got a cute and tight butt, Akeno said in a whisper, so Izuku couldn't hear her. As soon as Izuku landed from his jump, he looked at Akeno with a surprised look in his eyes and dark red cheeks while rubbing where she squeezed. Sorry about that. I couldn't control myself. I was so curious what you'd look like when you're in that kind of pain. Izuku lets out a whine in frustration. You ain't called a sadist for nothing. Akeno lets another smile form on her lips as her eyes close. If it makes you feel any better, I'm also a masochist. I have both sides flowing in me. What? Asked Izuku with a dumbfounded look with wide eyes. That's right, Akeno confirms as she opens her violet eyes and has them make contact with his while licking her lips and pushing her boobs together with her arms. So, if you'd like to do anything to me in the future, you can be as rough with me as you want and make it as painful as you want. Akeno said the last part with lust in her eyes and a dark blush on her cheeks, which were enough to startle Izuku a little. Wow, just wow. Akeno giggles at Izuku's reaction as she began to walk away from him. Izuku. We should do this again sometime. Izuku blushes once more when Akeno gave him a wink before turning forward to her destination, swaying her hips suggestively while walking. Why yeah. See ya, Izuku replies with a slight wave. After he saw Akeno walk further enough, he lets out another sigh of relief, happy that his sanity and consciousness were still in one piece. Izuku then began walking his way back home. After taking a few steps, he couldn't help but feel something slightly wet on his right leg. He stopped his pacing and looked down towards his right pant leg to inspect it. Upon further investigation, he blinked in surprise to see that there was a small wet spot on the back of the pant leg and knew what it meant that it made him blush even more. Dear hell, she got wet from what she just did to me, am I supposed to be happy or scared? Izuku said while heading home to meet with Asia and Iara, having to deal with villains saving students of the hero course, facing a monster that was equal in strength against the symbol of peace, punched the said symbol of peace in the groin, being talked down by Asia, Iara and Rose and almost being close to losing his little junior from his senpai. Yep, what a day for Izukumidoriya, former human now devil, the wearer of the boosted gear and a guy who did something in his past to seal away his memories and also his powers. Yup, what a day for this young man. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.